In the 41st millennium, Roboute Guilliman had faced demons, traitor legions, and the slow decay of his father's dream. He had awakened from 10,000 years of stasis to find the Imperium a corpse empire, bloated on faith and ignorance. He had fought across the galaxy to hold back the darkness with one hand while trying to reform a civilization that worshipped stagnation. None of that prepared him for waking up in a universe that had never heard of the Emperor. The Primarch's eyes opened to unfamiliar technology: sterile white panels, holographic displays showing star charts he didn't recognize, the hum of engines that ran on principles his transhuman mind cataloged as primitive but functional. His armor registered no threats, but every instinct honed across 3 centuries of warfare screamed that something was fundamentally wrong. He sat up, and the medical bed beneath him groaned in protest. His gauntleted hand moved to where the Emperor's sword should hang at his side. It was there, along with the Hand of Dominion. Whatever had brought him here hadn't stripped him of his war gear. Small mercy. The door hissed open. 3 figures entered, and Guilliman's tactical assessment was instantaneous. 2 soldiers in identical white armor, carrying energy weapons of efficient but unsophisticated design. Between them, a robed figure with a lightsaber. His armor's auspex had never catalogued such a weapon, hanging from his belt. Human, male, calm biometrics despite facing an unknown element. "Please remain calm," the robed man said, raising both hands in a peaceful gesture. "I am Jedi Master Plo Koon. You're aboard the Republic cruiser Endurance. You've been unconscious for 3 standard hours since we found your vessel drifting in the Atravis sector." Guilliman's mind worked with the cold precision that had made him the master of the 500 worlds. Jedi, a term meaning nothing to him. Republic, a government structure, likely federal. Atravis sector, no match in his comprehensive knowledge of Imperial space. The linguistic pattern suggested high Gothic roots, but divergent evolution. The architecture, the technology, even the fundamental resonance of reality felt different. He had been torn from the Materium entirely. This wasn't the Imperium. This wasn't even the same galaxy. "I am Roboute Guilliman," he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority that came naturally to a Primarch. "Lord Commander of the Imperium, Primarch of the 13th Legion and avenging son of the Emperor of mankind. I require a full strategic briefing on current galactic conditions, the nature of the conflict that necessitates warships of this class, and an explanation of how I came to be in your custody." The 2 soldiers, clone troopers, his enhanced hearing caught Plo Koon thinking, shifted their weight. The Jedi, to his credit, didn't flinch at the declaration. Instead, something that might have been curiosity flickered across his face. "Those titles mean nothing to us, I'm afraid," Plo Koon said carefully. "But your armor and weapons are unlike anything in Republic records. The technology is remarkable. Brutal, but remarkable." He paused. "We're at war. The Galactic Republic against the Confederacy of Independent Systems, what we call the Separatists. It's been 2 years of conflict across thousands of worlds." Guilliman absorbed this with the practiced ease of a general who'd commanded campaigns across entire segmentums. A galactic civil war. Familiar territory, though the specifics would matter. He stood, his full height making even the tall Jedi look small, and the clone troopers' hands tightened on their weapons, an instinctive response to a potential threat that Guilliman noted and filed away. 2 years is an eternity for a galactic war to remain unresolved, Guilliman said. Either both sides possess near equal strategic capabilities, or more likely, neither side possesses competent unified command. He looked directly at Plo Koon. "Take me to your military leadership. I will assess your tactical situation and determine how I might return to my own time and place." In exchange, I offer consultation on your strategic failures." The Jedi's respirator mask hid most of his expression, but his force-enhanced senses picked up something unusual. This armored giant showed no presence in the Force at all. Not suppressed, not hidden, simply absent, like a void in the shape of a man. And yet he radiated confidence, intelligence, and an aura of command that reminded Plo Koon of the greatest Republic generals. "The Jedi Council will want to meet you," Plo Koon said, "and likely the Supreme Chancellor as well. But first," he gestured to the clone troopers. "CT-2289, CT-3381, escort our guest to the bridge. Commander, prepare a secure channel to Coruscant. Tell them we've encountered something unprecedented." As Guilliman strode through the corridors of the Endurance, clone troopers stopped and stared. His armor, dense, a masterwork of archaeotech and adamantium, gleamed blue and gold under the ship's lighting. The armor of fate had protected him from demons and Xenos warlords. Here, it made him look like a walking myth. The clones, and he immediately recognized them as artificial soldiers, their genetic signatures too identical to be natural, moved aside with the disciplined precision of professional warriors. He approved. Whatever else this Republic might be, they understood the value of standardized, trainable soldiers. On the bridge, officers turned from holographic displays showing fleet positions. A woman in a Republic officer's uniform approached, Admiral Shea, his enhanced hearing caught, and her eyes widened at the sight of him. "Master Plo Koon," she said, unable to look away from Guilliman. "I've sent the message to Coruscant, but they're requesting visual confirmation of—" She gestured helplessly at the Primarch. "Understandable," Guilliman said, moving to the tactical display with the purposeful stride of someone who owned every battlefield he walked. His eyes scanned the holographic representation of the current engagement: 3 Republic cruisers holding a defensive position against a superior separatist force. His tactical assessment took less than 5 seconds. "Your formation is compromised. You're presenting your broadside to concentrated fire, while your support frigates are too dispersed to provide effective screening. Consolidate here," he pointed with the hand of Dominion. "Angle your heaviest ship to draw fire, while the lighter vessels execute a pincer movement through this debris field. The enemy commander is competent but unimaginative. They'll assume you're retreating and overextend." Admiral Shea looked at Master Plo Koon. The Jedi nodded slowly. "Execute the maneuver," she ordered. "All ships, Delta 7 formation, mark on the debris field." Guilliman watched with clinical interest as the Republic fleet pivoted. The Separatist commander took the bait exactly as predicted. Within 8 minutes, 2 Separatist cruisers were crippled, and the third was retreating into hyperspace. The bridge crew stared at the armored giant who just won them a battle with a 10-second glance at their tactical display. "Adequate execution," Guilliman said, "though your gunnery crews need retraining in target prioritization. You wasted 17% of your ordnance on already disabled systems." He turned to Plo Koon. "Now, take me to your council. We have much to discuss." And in that moment, Master Plo Koon realized that the Republic had been visited by something far more dangerous than any separatist weapon. A leader who knew exactly how to win their war. If you crave stories of impossible collisions between universes and the clash of legendary commanders facing new challenges, smash that subscribe button because tales of Primarchs, Jedi, and galactic warfare are just beginning. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant rose like a monument to ancient wisdom, its spires reaching toward a sky crisscrossed with endless streams of air traffic. Guilliman observed it through the viewport of the diplomatic shuttle with the analytical gaze he'd once turned upon the architectural wonders of Macrogge. "Beautiful," he admitted privately, But beauty without function was waste, and he suspected the temple's grandeur served more symbolic than practical purposes. "The council has agreed to meet with you," Plo Koon said from across the shuttle's cabin. "Though I should warn you, they're concerned. Your arrival is unprecedented, your technology is unknown, and your tactical abilities are frankly unsettling." "As they should be," Guilliman replied without turning from the viewport. "An unknown military asset appearing during wartime represents either opportunity or threat. Your council would be incompetent not to be concerned." He finally looked at the Jedi. "Tell me about this force you serve. Your warriors carry swords in an age of energy weapons. Your religious order holds political power. These are contradictions that suggest either profound wisdom or profound dysfunction." Plo Koon considered his words carefully. In the 2 days since Guilliman's arrival, the Primarch had absorbed information about the Republic with voracious efficiency. He'd read strategic reports, studied clone training protocols, analyzed Senate legislative records, and questioned everyone from admirals to maintenance crews. The picture he was assembling made the Jedi uncomfortable, because Guilliman saw things they'd been too close to notice. "The Force is the energy field created by all living things," Plo Koon explained. "It surrounds us, penetrates us, binds the galaxy together. The Jedi serve as peacekeepers, guided by the Force to maintain balance and protect the Republic." Guilliman's expression hardened. "Mysticism. You've built your entire strategic philosophy around supernatural belief." He raised a hand to forestall protest. "I don't doubt you possess unusual abilities. I've witnessed your telekinetic capabilities and enhanced reflexes. But attributing them to cosmic energy rather than biological mutation or technological enhancement is intellectually lazy. It also makes you predictable." "Predictable?" Plo Koon's tone carried an edge now. "You believe the Force guides you toward correct action, therefore you trust your instincts over analysis. You rely on improvisation over planning. And you've allowed a religious order to become entangled with military command, creating divided loyalties and unclear chains of authority." Guilliman's blue eyes fixed on the Jedi with uncomfortable intensity. "In my Imperium, we learned the cost of faith-based governance. It nearly destroyed us." The shuttle landed on a temple platform before Plo Koon could respond. As they disembarked, Guilliman noted the temple guards, masked, pike-wielding sentinels who moved with trained precision. Better than he'd expected, though their ceremonial armor would provide insufficient protection in actual combat. The temple itself impressed him more. Vast chambers designed for meditation and training, archives that rivaled Macragi's libraries, and throughout it all, warriors moving with purpose. Flawed tools, perhaps, but tools that could be refined. The council chamber was a circular room ringed with chairs, currently occupied by 12 Jedi Masters representing the Order's highest authority. Guilliman entered with Plo Koon, and immediately every Force sensitive in the room felt that same disturbing void, a blind spot where a living being should register in the Force, but simply didn't. Master Yoda, ancient and weathered, leaned forward on his hover chair. "Roboute Guilliman, come far you have. Welcome to the Jedi Temple you are." Guilliman inclined his head, a gesture of respect between equals, not subordinate to superior. "Master Yoda, I am honored by your council's attention. I understand you have questions about my origin and capabilities." "Questions indeed," Mace Windu said, his tone carefully neutral. "You appear from nowhere in a vessel we can barely comprehend, demonstrate tactical knowledge that wins battles in minutes, and claim to come from an empire we've never heard of. The Force offers no guidance regarding you. It's as if you don't exist in its currents." "I suspect that's because I don't," Guilliman replied. "I come from a different galaxy entirely, possibly a different dimension of reality. In my universe, there exists a realm of psychic energy called the warp. Your force may be a distant echo of similar phenomena, but fundamentally different. He saw confusion rippling through the council and shifted approach. But cosmological theory serves no immediate purpose. You need to understand two facts. First, I wish to return to my own time and place. Second, until I discover how to do so, I am stranded in your galaxy during your war. "And what do you want from us?" asked Ki Adi Mundi. "Information, resources, and in exchange I offer something your Republic desperately needs: strategic competence." Guilliman's voice carried absolute confidence. "I've reviewed your military situation. 2 years of war. Trillions of credits spent. Millions dead. Thousands of worlds contested. And you're no closer to victory than when you started. The war is complex." Mace Windu began. "All wars are complex," Guilliman interrupted, "but you're fighting this one with profound inefficiency. Your clone troopers are well-trained but poorly deployed. Your Jedi serve as battlefield commanders despite lacking formal military education. Courage and supernatural abilities don't compensate for strategic ignorance. Your supply lines are vulnerable. Your intelligence gathering is reactive rather than proactive. And your Senate's political interference creates operational paralysis." The council chamber fell silent. Several masters bristled at the criticism, but others, Plo Koon among them, recognized uncomfortable truth. Yoda's ears twitched. Harsh words these are, but examine them we must. The ancient master's eyes gleamed with something that might have been curiosity. "Military commander, are you? But also administrator, yes? Read your file, I did. Built worlds, governed systems, more than warrior, you claim to be." "I am a Primarch," Guilliman said. "Created by the Emperor of mankind to be both general and governor. I've commanded legions of transhuman warriors across centuries of warfare. I've written military doctrine that shaped an entire civilization's approach to war. And I've ruled 500 worlds, transforming them from barbarism to enlightenment." He paused. "Your Republic reminds me of the Federation I inherited on Macragay, bloated, bureaucratic, convinced of its moral superiority while rotting from within. I saved that civilization. I can help save yours. Help us, or conquer us." Mace Windu's hand moved subtly toward his lightsaber. Guilliman noticed. "If I wish to conquer, Master Windu, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I would have seized Admiral Shay's fleet, analyzed your hyperspace coordinates, and struck at your capital world before you knew I was hostile." His expression softened slightly. "But conquest serves no purpose. I'm not your enemy. I'm a stranger trying to find his way home. Until then, watching your Republic burn because of incompetent leadership offends my sense of efficiency." Obi-Wan Kenobi, who'd been studying Guilliman with keen interest, spoke for the first time. "You speak of the Republic with disdain, yet you offer to help preserve it. Why?" "Because the alternative is worse." Guilliman replied. "I've seen what happens when civilization collapses, the darkness that follows, the centuries needed to rebuild. Your separatist movement may have legitimate grievances, but civil war will devastate this galaxy regardless of who wins." He looked directly at Obi-Wan. "I am a builder, Master Kenobi. Destruction disgusts me, even when necessary. If I can prevent collapse while seeking my own path home, I will." Yoda was silent for a long moment, communing with the Force, and finding, as always, nothing when he reached toward the armored giant. Finally, he spoke. "A test I propose. Sector Command, Guilliman shall receive. Small fleet, limited authority. Show us what strategies you possess, you will. If wisdom you prove, expand your role, we might. Several council members looked shocked. Mace Windu's jaw tightened. Master Yoda, giving military command to someone we don't understand. Understand him, we do not, Yoda agreed. But lose the war, we might. Bold action, desperate times require. Watch him closely, we will. But chance him we must. Guilliman recognized the political calculation instantly. The council was divided. Some saw potential, others saw threat. Yoda was gambling that giving him limited power would reveal his true nature before he could do serious damage. Simultaneously, if Guilliman proved competent, the Republic gained an asset they desperately needed. Practical. He approved. I accept your test, Guilliman said. Assign me the sector with the highest casualty rates and poorest strategic outcomes. Give me adequate forces and 3 months. I will deliver results. The Botha Wuai sector, Plo Koon said quietly. We've lost 4 Jedi generals there in 8 months. The Separatists hold 6 systems and advance monthly. Clone casualties exceed 70% in some engagements. Perfect, Guilliman said. I'll need complete tactical briefings, fleet disposition reports, and biographical files on all senior officers now. Also access to your clone training facilities. I want to understand their capabilities and limitations. He turned back to the council. One more thing. In my Imperium, we have a saying. Knowledge is power. Guard it well. I've given you honesty about my goals and capabilities. I ask the same in return. If your force grants insights about threats I should know, including threats within your own government, share them. The council members exchanged glances. None spoke of the darkness clouding their vision, the Senate's slow corruption, or the gnawing fear that something was profoundly wrong with the Republic itself. They kept their secrets, as Jedi always had. It was a decision they would come to regret. As Guilliman left the temple with his new assignment, Mace Windu turned to Yoda. This could be a catastrophic mistake. Perhaps, Yoda said softly, or perhaps the Force works in ways beyond our understanding. Sent to us in desperate hour, this warrior was. Coincidence? I think not. But Guilliman had been sent by no Force. He'd been torn from his own galaxy by the chaotic whims of the warp, and in the Star Wars universe, chaos had a very different champion already moving his pieces across the board. On Coruscant, in a Senate office wrapped in shadows, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine felt a disturbance he couldn't quite identify. Something had entered the galaxy, something that didn't register in the Force, yet radiated power nonetheless. For the first time in decades, Darth Sidious felt something close to uncertainty and smiled. The Botha sector burned. Guilliman stood in the command center of the Resolute, Admiral Wolf Yularen's flagship, studying holographic displays that painted a picture of systematic military failure. 6 star systems under Separatist control, 12 contested worlds, Republic supply convoys intercepted with 92% reliability, clone casualties mounting exponentially with each engagement, and overseeing this catastrophe, a rotating cast of Jedi generals who approached warfare like a spiritual exercise rather than a science. General Skywalker held this sector before his reassignment to the Outer Rim, Admiral Yularen explained, his weathered face tight with barely concealed frustration. Brave man, brilliant pilot, but he fought with his heart, not his head, led charges personally, took risks that inspired the men but devastated our strategic position. Courage without discipline is waste, Guilliman said, his gauntleted finger tracing enemy fleet positions. And inspiration that leads to death serves no purpose. He turned to the assembled officers, 3 admirals, 2 clone commanders, and a single Jedi Knight named Nadar Veb, who'd been assigned as the Council's observer. This ends now. We will not trade lives for moral victories. We will not accept heroic defeats. We will win, efficiently and completely, or we will die trying. Clone Commander Cody, transferred to Guilliman's command specifically because of his reputation for adaptability, stepped forward. "Sir, the men are ready for new orders, but I need to be direct. They're used to Jedi leadership. Your methods are different." "My methods prioritize victory and survival in that order," Guilliman replied. "I don't believe in the Force, Commander. I believe in logistics, superior positioning, and overwhelming application of violence at critical junctures." He looked at each officer in turn. "I will not waste your lives on foolish heroics, but I will spend them without hesitation if it achieves strategic objectives. If that's unacceptable, request transfer now." No one moved. "Good." Guilliman activated a new tactical display. The Separatists control this sector because they've established a forward operating base in the Krant system. Here, all their supply lines, all their coordination flows through this single point. Previous Republic strategy involved attempting to recapture lost worlds one at a time, allowing the enemy to reinforce and resupply continuously. We will not repeat that mistake. "You're proposing we strike Krant directly?" Admiral Yularen's eyes widened. "General, the system is heavily fortified, 3 defensive stations, a full Separatist fleet. Attempting an assault with our current forces would be suicide." "It would be," Guilliman agreed, "if we assaulted directly. We won't." His fingers danced across the holographic controls, and the display shifted to show a complex multi-phase operation. Phase 1, we abandon the contested worlds, withdraw all forces to consolidate here in the Bothawi home system. The Separatists will interpret this as retreat and commit additional forces to solidify their gains. Jedi Knight Veb looked horrified. "Abandon those worlds? There are millions of Republic citizens who will be under Separatist occupation temporarily rather than caught in the crossfire permanently." Guilliman cut him off. "War requires difficult choices, Knight Veb. I choose strategic victory over tactical sentiment," he continued before the Jedi could protest further. Phase 2. While the Separatists celebrate their expansion, we fortify Bothawi itself into an unassailable position. Every defensive platform, every minefield, every gun battery focused on making this system impregnable. "You're baiting them," Commander Cody said, understanding dawning in his voice. "You want them to attack Bothawi?" "Precisely. They'll see a consolidated Republic force as a threat to their new holdings. Their commander, Admiral Trench, according to intelligence reports, is aggressive and confident. He'll bring his fleet here to crush us and secure the sector permanently." Guilliman's smile was cold. "Phase 3, we let him commit fully to the assault. Let him wear his forces against our prepared defenses. And while he's focused on Bothawi, we execute a surgical strike against Krant with a secondary fleet." Admiral Yularen studied the plan with growing appreciation. "You're splitting your forces, leaving enough here to hold while taking enough to strike decisively at their base of operations. The Separatists will be caught between defending Krant and maintaining their assault on Bothawi. They'll be forced to divide their attention, weakening both efforts. We destroy their command infrastructure at Krant, collapse their supply lines, and suddenly 6 occupied systems become isolated garrison forces we can reduce at leisure." Guilliman looked at each officer. "It's simple, brutal, and effective. The enemy expects Jedi-style heroics. We'll give them calculated ruthlessness instead." The planning session lasted 8 hours. Guilliman dissected every aspect of the operation with the thoroughness that had made him legendary in his own galaxy. Clone deployment patterns, supply chain redundancies, communication protocols, contingency plans for 17 different failure scenarios. By the time he finished, even the skeptical Admiral Ultramarine was convinced. But Nadar Veb remained troubled. "Lord Guilliman," he said. The Primarch had insisted on that title rather than General. "This plan is sound tactically, but it feels cold. The Jedi way is to trust in the Force, to allow flexibility and intuition to guide our actions." Guilliman turned to face the young Jedi fully. "Knight Veb, I respect your dedication to your beliefs. But intuition without information is guesswork. Flexibility without framework is chaos. Your Force may grant you insights, but it doesn't feed armies, repair ships, or resupply ammunition." His voice softened slightly. "I've fought alongside warriors who claimed divine guidance. Some were genuinely touched by powers beyond mortal understanding. Others were simply lucky until their luck ran out. I trust neither the gods nor chance. I trust preparation." "The Force is neither God nor chance." "Then prove it," Guilliman interrupted. "Use your Force abilities in support of this operation. Your enhanced reflexes make you superior starfighter pilots. I want you coordinating our assault wing. Your precognitive abilities can provide tactical warnings. I want you embedded with our forward scouts. Show me how mysticism complements pragmatism, and I'll incorporate it into our doctrine." Niyahdar Veb blinked, caught off guard. Most military commanders either dismissed the Jedi entirely or relied on them completely. Guilliman was doing neither. He was categorizing their abilities as tools to be optimized. It was simultaneously respectful and deeply unsettling. "I'll do as you ask," Veb said slowly, "but the Council will hear about your methods." "I expect they will," Guilliman replied. "Truth fears no scrutiny." The withdrawal from contested worlds began immediately. Republic forces pulled back with disciplined precision that shocked both clone troopers and separatist observers. This wasn't retreat. It was surgical redeployment. Every vehicle, every supply crate, every piece of artillery withdrawn in perfect order. The clones, accustomed to chaotic evacuations led by impulsive Jedi, found themselves following timetables calculated to the minute. Commander Cody watched from the bridge of a transport as the last dropships lifted from Mallister. "Sir," he said quietly to Guilliman, "the men are responding well. They're used to orders from Jedi who trust the Force. Having a commander who trusts them instead, it matters." Guilliman nodded. "The clones are the Republic's greatest military asset, Commander. Genetically optimized, professionally trained, absolutely loyal. In my Imperium, they would be comparable to elite guard regiments." He paused. "They deserve leadership that doesn't squander their potential on glory charges." "Most Jedi don't see it that way," Cody said carefully. "Most Jedi are warrior mystics playing at being generals," Guilliman replied bluntly. "Effective in small unit actions, inspirational in desperate moments. But strategically, they're amateurs." He looked at Cody. "You've served under Jedi command for 2 years. Tell me honestly, how many have bothered to study military theory? How many understand logistics? How many can explain the difference between tactical victory and strategic success?" Cody was silent for a moment. "General Kenobi understands strategy. Master Windu thinks like a soldier. Master Plo Koon learns from every engagement." He hesitated. "But you're right. Most of them fight like heroes from ancient tales. Sometimes it works. Sometimes entire battalions die because a Jedi trusted the Force instead of reconnaissance reports." "That changes in this sector," Guilliman said. "The Force may exist. It may even provide genuine guidance, but it will not replace intelligence, planning, and overwhelming firepower properly applied. 3 weeks later, Admiral Trench arrived at Bothawi with 63 warships. The Arch Admiral was a legend among separatist forces, a tactical genius who'd won campaigns through cunning and aggression. He looked at the Republic's fortified position and smiled with mandibles that had torn through enemies for decades. The Republic had consolidated into a defensive posture. They were afraid, and fear made prey predictable. "Begin the assault," Trench ordered. "Concentrate fire on their orbital platforms. I want this broken within the day." The Separatist fleet advanced in a hammer formation, exactly as Guilliman's tactical models had predicted. They hammered the Republic's defensive stations with torrential fire. Explosions lit the void. Clone defenders died by the hundreds as platforms buckled under sustained bombardment. And Guilliman watched from the Resolute, positioned in the second defensive line, and did nothing. "Sir," Admiral Yularen's voice was strained. "Platform 7 is failing. If we don't reinforce—" "Hold position," Guilliman commanded. "Let Trench commit fully." Nadar Veb, positioned beside the Primarch, felt wrongness through the Force. Lives ending. Ships dying, and this cold strategist simply watching. "Lord Guilliman, we must..." "Must what, Knight Veb?" "Rush forward and give Trench the fleet battle he expects?" "No." Guilliman's eyes never left the tactical display. Every platform he destroys costs him ammunition. Every minute he focuses here is a minute our strike force approaches Krant undetected. War isn't about saving every life. It's about ensuring the deaths serve purpose. It was brutal logic, inhuman logic, and it was working. While Admiral Trench pressed his assault on both Thawui, convinced he was crushing the Republic's resistance, 3 Republic battle groups under Commander Wolfe's leadership emerged from hyperspace at Krant. The Separatist garrison, stripped of ships to support Trench's offensive, found themselves facing overwhelming force with minimal warning. The battle for Krant lasted 40 minutes. The Republic strike force destroyed the command stations, obliterated supply depots, and captured enough intelligence to compromise every Separatist operation in the sector. By the time Admiral Trench realized what had happened, his entire strategic position had collapsed. He withdrew from Bothawi in fury, racing back to defend his base of operations. But it was already too late. When his battered fleet arrived at Krant, they found Republic forces occupying a fortress Trench had believed impregnable. The Bothawi sector campaign ended 3 months ahead of schedule. 6 occupied systems liberated. Enemy casualties catastrophic. Republic casualties 38% below sector average for similar operations. Strategic objective achieved completely. When Commander Cody's transport returned to Bothawi, the clone commander found Guilliman in the command center, already planning the next phase of operations. "Sir," Cody said, "the men wanted you to know. They've started calling you the Avenging Son. Some of the older clones say you fight like you were born for war." Guilliman looked up from his tactical displays. "I was born for war, Commander, just not this one." His expression was unreadable. "But until I find my way home, this war is mine, and I intend to win it." On Coruscant, the Jedi Council received Nadar Veb's report in silence. "Effective," Mace Windu said finally. "Brutally effective. But without compassion," Ki-Adi Mundi added. "He spent lives like currency." "Saved more lives than he spent," Plo Koon countered. "The sector casualties decreased significantly." Yoda was silent, his ancient eyes troubled. Military genius Guilliman possesses, but darkness in his methods, I sense. Not Sith darkness, something colder, more certain. He looked at the council. "Watch him closely, we must. For if weapon he becomes, control him we may not. But control had never been Guilliman's concern. Victory was, and somewhere in the Force a shadow stirred with interest. The Senate building on Coruscant glittered like a jewel at the heart of the Republic, its massive rotunda designed to showcase democratic ideals through architectural grandeur. Roboute Guilliman found it wasteful, 30,000 cubic meters of space dedicated to aesthetics that could have housed 3 battalion command centers. But he kept such observations to himself as he strode through corridors lined with senatorial aides and political functionaries who stared at the armored giant with mixture of awe and apprehension. His success at Bothawui had earned him an audience with Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. 3 months of flawless military execution, 7 major victories, clone casualty rates reduced by 41% in sectors under his command. The Senate Defense Committee had taken notice. More importantly, Palpatine had taken notice. Guilliman's strategic mind cataloged everything as he walked. Security positions, inadequate. Surveillance systems, primitive but comprehensive. Political organization, Byzantine complexity, masking fundamental dysfunction. The Republic's Senate reminded him of the worst excesses of Terran bureaucracy before the Emperor's unification wars. Thousands of voices, each convinced of their righteousness, collectively achieving paralysis. Lord Guilliman, the protocol droid announced as massive doors opened into the Chancellor's office. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine will see you now. The office was surprisingly modest compared to the Senate's grandiosity. Functional furniture, holographic displays showing galactic maps and casualty reports, and behind a curved desk, an elderly human with a kindly face and eyes that assessed Guilliman with uncomfortable precision. Lord Commander Guilliman, Palpatine said, rising with a politician's practiced warmth. Your reputation precedes you, the hero of Bothawui, the general who turned our worst strategic disaster into our greatest victory in months. He gestured to a chair, far too small for Guilliman's transhuman frame, and the Primarch remained standing. Supreme Chancellor, Guilliman replied with neutral formality. I'm honored by your attention, though my actions merely corrected gross tactical incompetence. The Republic's military potential far exceeds its current performance. Palpatine's smile widened. Direct, refreshingly so. Too many generals coat their reports in diplomatic language to avoid offending the Senate. He moved to the holographic display, bringing up sector maps. Your methods are controversial. Several Jedi Masters have expressed concern about your willingness to accept casualties in pursuit of objectives. The Jedi are warriors, not generals, Guilliman said bluntly. They confuse individual heroism with strategic competence. I don't waste lives, Chancellor. I spend them efficiently. There's a difference. And that difference has saved thousands of clone troopers who would have died under conventional Jedi command, Palpatine observed. The Kaminoans are impressed. The Senate Defense Committee is impressed. Even some of my political opponents acknowledge your results, however much they dislike your methods. He turned to face Guilliman fully. I find myself in an unusual position, Lord Commander. I have a military genius who appeared from nowhere, who owes no loyalty to Republic factions, who operates outside normal command structures, and who wins battles with terrifying consistency. You're wondering if I'm a threat, Guilliman said. I'm wondering what you want, Palpatine corrected. Power? Wealth? Glory? Every being wants something, Lord Commander. Understanding motivations is the foundation of politics. Guilliman studied the Chancellor with the same analytical precision he'd applied to enemy fleet formations. Palpatine was older, physically diminished, yet radiated a quality Guilliman recognized from his father: absolute certainty. This was a man who believed he knew the galaxy's true shape, who saw patterns others missed. Dangerous, potentially useful. I want to return to my own galaxy, Guilliman said. Failing that, I want to survive in this one. Your Republic is fighting a civil war with existential implications. If the Republic collapses, galactic civilization descends into chaos that will take centuries to rebuild. I've seen that darkness before, Chancellor. I won't watch it happen again without opposition. Noble sentiments, Palpatine said, but nobility alone doesn't explain your effectiveness. You fight as though you've commanded armies for lifetimes. Your tactical innovations suggest military theory centuries ahead of current doctrine. Your administrative reforms in the Bothaui sector have increased efficiency by factors the Republic hasn't seen since... He paused deliberately. Well, since the Republic was young and vital. I come from a civilization that perfected warfare through necessity, Guilliman replied. My Imperium fought threats that would make your separatists look like planetary militia. I learned war not from academies but from survival. And now you bring that expertise here. Palpatine moved closer, his expression becoming grave. Lord Commander, I'll be direct. The Republic is losing this war, not militarily. We have the numbers, the production, the clone army. We're losing it strategically. The Jedi Council operates independently of civilian authority. The Senate argues while worlds burn. Our generals win battles but lose campaigns. I need someone who sees the larger pattern, someone who can coordinate military operations without religious mysticism or political interference. Guilliman felt the weight of the offer before Palpatine spoke it. I want you to serve as Supreme Commander of the Grand Army of the Republic, Palpatine said. Complete operational authority over all military assets. You would answer directly to me, bypassing the Senate committees and even the Jedi Council's traditional oversight. I would grant you emergency powers to reorganize command structures, implement new doctrines, and prosecute this war with the efficiency it demands. For 3 full seconds, Guilliman was silent. His transhuman mind processed implications at speeds no human could match. This was exactly the kind of authority he'd wielded in his own Imperium, total military control, answerable only to the highest civilian authority. It was also exactly the kind of power that could be used to reshape a civilization, or destroy it. That position would make me the most powerful military figure in the Republic, Guilliman said carefully. More powerful than any Jedi general, powerful enough to threaten civilian government if I chose. Yes, Palpatine agreed, which is why I'm offering it to you rather than a Jedi or a career Republic officer. The Jedi are too constrained by their philosophy. Republic officers are too entangled in political networks. But you? His eyes gleamed. You're an outsider. No political debts, no religious dogma, just results. And if you betray me, Lord Commander, you'd face the combined might of the Jedi Order and the Senate Guard. You're formidable, but even you couldn't survive that. Guilliman appreciated the honesty. Palpatine was offering power while simultaneously explaining the leash. It was cleaner than most political arrangements. But something nagged at Guilliman's strategic instincts, a pattern he couldn't quite articulate. He'd reviewed Senate proceedings, studied political alignments, analyzed voting records, and something was wrong. The Republic's dysfunction felt orchestrated, as if someone was deliberately ensuring paralysis while consolidating power through emergency measures. I need to understand your vision, Chancellor, Guilliman said. You speak of the Republic's weakness. You offer me extraordinary authority. What do you see as the endgame? How does this war end? Palpatine moved to the window overlooking Coruscant's endless cityscape. The Republic has grown soft, Lord Commander. 10,000 years of peace and prosperity have made us complacent. The Separatists had legitimate grievances over taxation, corruption, Senate inefficiency. Instead of reform, we chose war. Now both sides bleed while the galaxy suffers. He turned back to Guilliman. I see three possible endings. First, military stalemate followed by negotiated partition, which guarantees future conflict. Second, prolonged total war that destroys both sides and invites external threats. Third, decisive military victory followed by comprehensive reform. You want the third option, Guilliman said. I want what you want, Lord Commander. Stability, order, a galaxy where civilization flourishes rather than fragments. Palpatine's voice carried conviction that seemed genuine. But to achieve that, I need to win this war quickly and completely. Then I need to ensure the Republic never becomes this vulnerable again. That requires military reorganization, Senate reform, and temporary consolidation of authority. Temporary consolidation. Guilliman had heard those words before in his own Imperium. They rarely meant what they promised. I'll consider your offer, Guilliman said, but I require access to comprehensive intelligence regarding the war's strategic situation, not battlefield reports, deep intelligence. Who funds the Separatists? Where do they acquire their droid armies? What are the financial networks that sustain this conflict? Palpatine nodded slowly. Reasonable. I'll have my intelligence services provide you with classified briefings. Though I warn you, some of what you'll learn is disturbing. The Separatist leadership includes former Republic senators, corporate interests, and financial institutions that operate across both sides. War, unfortunately, is profitable for some. War is always profitable for someone, Guilliman said. The question is whether those profiting are also orchestrating. Something flickered across Palpatine's face, too quick to identify, but it triggered Guilliman's combat instincts like a sniper's targeting laser. Just for a microsecond, the kindly Chancellor's mask slipped and Guilliman saw something else beneath. Something calculating, something amused. Then it was gone and Palpatine was simply a concerned leader again. Take time to consider, Palpatine said. I know such authority is a burden, but the Republic needs leaders willing to bear necessary burdens. We'll speak again soon, Lord Commander. As Guilliman departed the Senate building, his mind worked through political calculations with the same precision he applied to military logistics. Palpatine was brilliant. That much was obvious. The Chancellor had consolidated more power than any single figure should possess in a functioning democracy. He'd used the war to justify emergency measures. He'd positioned himself as the Republic's savior while simultaneously appearing moderate and reasonable. It was masterful political strategy, almost too masterful. Guilliman had governed 500 worlds. He'd transformed Ultramar from warring states into a model civilization. He understood how power consolidated and how ambition masked itself in necessity. And every instinct, honed across centuries, was screaming a single warning. Palpatine was too competent for the role he played. The kindly Chancellor was a facade. But for what? Back in his assigned quarters, a converted barracks suite that he'd immediately reorganized into a tactical command center, Guilliman activated his private communications array. Clone Commander Cody appeared in holographic form. Commander, I need you to conduct an investigation. Quietly. No official channels. Sir, Cody's voice carried curiosity but no hesitation. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine has offered me supreme military command. Before I accept, I need to understand who I'd be serving. I want financial records, political history, personal associations, everything that doesn't appear in official biographies. That's risky, sir. Investigating the Chancellor could be interpreted as treason. Which is why you'll use clone intelligence networks that operate outside Senate oversight. Guilliman said. Your brothers have eyes across the galaxy, Commander. They see things politicians miss. I need their perspective on Palpatine. Cody was silent for a moment, then nodded. Understood, sir. Though I should tell you, the clones trust the Chancellor. He's always supported our interests in the Senate, fought for better conditions, better equipment. Without his advocacy, we'd just be property. Noted, Guilliman said, but trust without verification is faith, Commander. And I've learned that faith often blinds us to what's standing right in front of us. That night, as Coruscant's trillion lights painted the sky in artificial constellations, Guilliman stood at his window and thought of his own Imperium. The Emperor had built an empire through military conquest and then attempted to govern through appointed administrator. It had worked until religious zealotry corrupted everything. Now the Imperium was a theocratic nightmare his father had never intended. This republic had the opposite problem. Too much democracy, not enough decisive action. But Palpatine was correcting that, consolidating authority, using emergency powers to bypass gridlock. Exactly what a reformer would do, or exactly what a tyrant would do. The question was, which was Palpatine? And more pressingly, did it matter? If Guilliman refused the Supreme Commander position, the Republic would continue its current trajectory toward defeat or Pyrrhic victory. If he accepted, he'd have the power to win the war, but would be complicit in whatever political transformation Palpatine engineered. It was the kind of choice he'd faced before on Macragge. Work within a corrupt system and reform it gradually, or reject it entirely and build something new from the ashes. He'd chosen reform then. It had taken decades, but Ultramar had become a jewel of civilization. Could the Republic be salvaged the same way? Or was it already too far gone? Somewhere across Coruscant, in a hidden chamber wrapped in darkness, Darth Sidious meditated on the Primarch. The being called Guilliman was a variable Sidious had never anticipated. Powerful, brilliant, unburdened by Force sensitivity, which made him immune to certain manipulations. Dangerous, but also useful. The Jedi Council was already divided over Guilliman's methods. The Senate Defense Committee saw him as a potential replacement for Jedi Command. The clone troopers were developing loyalty to a figure outside the Jedi hierarchy, all according to the design Sidious had spent decades perfecting. The Republic needed to tear itself apart from within, creating chaos that justified absolute power. Guilliman could accelerate that process beautifully, or disrupt it catastrophically. The Sith Lord smiled. Variables were entertaining, and if Guilliman became too much of a threat, well, Order 66 applied to everyone the clones respected. Even Primarchs could bleed. The Jedi Temple archives contained the accumulated wisdom of 25,000 years. Guilliman had been granted limited access as part of his integration into Republic command structures, and he'd spent every spare moment absorbing information with the voracious appetite that had once consumed the libraries of Macragge. Military histories, political treatises, philosophical texts about the Force, and most importantly, records of the Jedi Order's relationship with the Republic. What he found disturbed him profoundly. "You've been here for 6 hours," a voice said from behind him. Guilliman turned to find Obi-Wan Kenobi approaching through the towering data stacks, his expression curious, but not hostile. Most military commanders find the archives tedious, too much philosophy, not enough tactical data. Most military commanders are intellectually lazy, Guilliman replied, gesturing to the holographic texts floating before him. "Master Kenobi, I was hoping to speak with you. Your reputation suggests you're one of the few Jedi who thinks strategically rather than mystically." Obi-Wan's lips quirked. "I'm not sure whether that's a compliment or an insult to my order." "Both," Guilliman said bluntly. Sit. I have questions, and you're intelligent enough to answer them honestly rather than defensively. The Jedi Master settled into a chair across from the Primarch, intrigued despite himself. Guilliman had that effect. His absolute certainty was simultaneously infuriating and compelling. What troubles you? The Jedi Order's fundamental contradiction, Guilliman said, bringing up a new set of documents. You claim to be peacekeepers serving the Republic, yet you maintain complete operational independence, answer to no civilian authority except by choice, and have been granted military command despite lacking formal military training. You're a warrior cult with political power and religious authority. That combination always ends poorly. Obi-Wan considered his response carefully. The Jedi serve the Force first, the Republic second. Our independence ensures we're not corrupted by political interests. Your independence ensures you're accountable to no one, Guilliman corrected. I've studied every major military engagement in this war. Jedi generals operate with complete autonomy. They ignore strategic directives from civilian leadership. They pursue personal objectives during critical operations. And when they fail, as they frequently do, there are no consequences beyond quiet reassignment. He leaned forward. Master Kenobi, in my Imperium, a general who disobeyed strategic command during wartime would be executed. You have generals who treat war as spiritual exercise rather than existential necessity. We don't see war as you do, Obi-Wan said quietly. Every life has value. Every death diminishes the Force. We fight to protect, not to conquer. Noble philosophy, terrible strategy. Guilliman pulled up casualty reports. Jedi-led operations have 23% higher clone casualties than operations led by career Republic officers. Why? Because Jedi trust the Force to guide them through situations that require planning and reconnaissance. They take risks that inspire stories but kill soldiers. They win tactical victories that mean nothing strategically. Obi-Wan felt his defenses rising but forced himself to listen. Guilliman wasn't attacking. He was analyzing. You think we're incompetent? I think you're mystics playing at being generals, Guilliman said. Some of you, yourself included, Master Plo Koon, Master Windu, have genuine strategic minds. But the Order as a whole treats military command as another arena for demonstrating Force mastery, rather than a specialized skill requiring years of study. He paused. Tell me honestly, how many Jedi have read military theory? How many understand logistics? How many can explain the principles of combined arms warfare? Obi-Wan was silent. The answer was obvious and humiliating. I don't ask these questions to insult you, Guilliman continued, his tone softening slightly. I ask because I'm trying to understand how a civilization as advanced as the Republic allowed itself to become dependent on a warrior cult for military leadership. And the answer I keep finding is troubling. Which is? The Jedi Order has been politically manipulated for centuries. You think you're independent. You think you serve the Force rather than political interests. But you've been so thoroughly integrated into Republic power structures that you can't see how you're being used. Guilliman brought up Senate voting records. Every time the Jedi Council supports a Senate military initiative, certain political factions gain power. Every time Jedi die in battle, it erodes your Order's political capital. Someone is orchestrating this, Master Kenobi. Someone wants the Jedi weakened, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Archive's climate control. You're suggesting a conspiracy. I'm suggesting pattern recognition, Guilliman replied. In my Imperium, I fought a civil war that nearly destroyed everything we'd built. It succeeded because my brothers and I were too arrogant to recognize we were being manipulated. We thought we were too powerful to be controlled. We were wrong. his blue eyes fixed on Obi-Wan with uncomfortable intensity. "The Jedi Order believes it's guiding the Republic. I suspect the opposite is true." Before Obi-Wan could respond, his comlink chimed. "Master Kenobi," Mace Windu's voice carried urgency. "Emergency council session, immediately." Guilliman stood as Obi-Wan rose. "Whatever emergency has occurred, Master Kenobi. Remember what we discussed. Question who benefits from Jedi involvement." The council chamber hummed with tension when Guilliman arrived. He'd been summoned as well, though he suspected reluctantly. All 12 masters were present, along with Supreme Chancellor Palpatine appearing via hologram. The situation had to be severe for the Chancellor to address the council directly. "Masters," Palpatine's holographic form said gravely, "I've received intelligence from our agents in the Outer Rim. Count Dooku is planning a major offensive against the Kamino cloning facilities. If successful, this strike would cripple our ability to replace clone casualties. The Republic would lose the war." Guilliman's strategic mind immediately began calculating logistics. Kamino was the source of all clone troopers. Losing it wouldn't end the war immediately. Existing clones would continue fighting, but it would guarantee eventual defeat through attrition. The Separatists could replace droid armies infinitely. The Republic could not. "We must defend Kamino with everything we have," Ki Adi Mundi said immediately. "Agreed," Mace Windu added. "I'll lead the defense personally, with 3 battle groups." "No," Guilliman said, and every eye turned to him. "You'll lose." The temperature in the council chamber seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mace Windu's hand moved unconsciously toward his lightsaber. "Explain yourself, Lord Commander." Guilliman moved to the holographic tactical display, calling up Kamino's defensive positions and likely separatist approach vectors. "Count Dooku isn't stupid. He knows Kamino is the Republic's strategic center of gravity. He also knows you'll defend it with overwhelming force, which means he's either accepted a suicide mission, unlikely, or this is a diversion." "A diversion from what?" Obi-Wan asked, understanding dawning. "From his actual target," Guilliman said, bringing up a new star chart. "While you commit your best forces and Jedi Masters to defending Kamino, where will the rest of the Republic be vulnerable? What objective has strategic value comparable to the cloning facilities?" Yoda's ears twitched as understanding struck. "Coruscant." "Precisely," Guilliman confirmed. "The capital, the Senate, the Jedi Temple, the command and control center for the entire Republic war effort. Dooku wants you to defend Kamino with everything you have, so he can strike here with a decapitation attack." Palpatine's holographic form looked troubled. "Lord Commander, your strategic reasoning is sound, but our intelligence is quite specific." "Your intelligence has been compromised," Guilliman interrupted, then immediately realized he'd just accused the Supreme Chancellor's spy network of failure in front of the Jedi Council. "Forgive my directness, Chancellor, but Count Dooku knows you have agents in his organization. He's feeding you information he wants you to believe. It's basic counterintelligence doctrine." Mace Windu studied the tactical displays with new eyes. "If you're right, splitting our forces would be catastrophic. We'd have insufficient strength at both locations." "Which is why we don't split our forces," Guilliman said. "We set a trap." For the next hour, Guilliman outlined a counter-strategy with the precision that had won him the Bothawi sector. Publicly announce a major fleet deployment to defend Kamino. Make it obvious. Make it look like the Republic was taking the bait completely. But secretly, keep the majority of the fleet in reserve near Coruscant, positioned to intercept the real Separatist strike force. "You're gambling that your assessment is correct," Plo Koon observed. "If Dooku really is attacking Kamino and we don't defend it adequately, Then we lose the war slowly over years instead of immediately, Guilliman said. But I'm not gambling, Master Plo. I'm reading my opponent. Dooku is a strategic thinker. Kamino is too obvious. He's spent this entire war demonstrating tactical sophistication. He wouldn't suddenly become predictable unless he wanted to be. Yoda was silent for a long moment, communing with the Force. But as always, when he reached toward Guilliman, there was only void. The Primarch existed outside the Force's currents, which meant the Force couldn't guide the Council regarding his counsel. They had to trust logic instead of mysticism. It was, Yoda reflected, deeply uncomfortable. "Trust Lord Guilliman's assessment, I do," Yoda said finally. "But compromise we shall make. Half our strength to Kamino, half in reserve near Coruscant. If wrong we are, still defend both locations we can." Guilliman wanted to argue for full commitment to his strategy, but recognized the political reality. The Jedi Council would never fully abandon their mystical guidance for his cold calculations. This was the best compromise available. "Acceptable," he said, "but I want tactical command of the Coruscant defense fleet. If Dooku comes here, I'll need freedom to respond without council debate." Mace Windu's jaw tightened. "You want complete autonomy during a battle for the capital?" "I want the authority to make decisions at combat speed," Guilliman replied. "Committees don't win battles, Master Windu. Commanders do. If you want democratic consensus, we'll lose. If you want victory, you'll give me operational control and trust me to exercise it competently." It was a power play, and everyone in the council chamber knew it. Guilliman was forcing the Jedi to either grant him unprecedented authority or tacitly admit they didn't trust his judgment. Politically, it was masterful. Strategically, it was necessary. Palpatine's hologram watched with interest. The Primarch was consolidating military power with remarkable speed. Sidious had expected Guilliman to be a useful asset or an obstacle to eliminate. Instead, he was becoming something more interesting, a genuine wild card. "The Council will vote," Mace Windu said coldly. The vote was 7-5 in Guilliman's favor, barely a majority, but enough. As the council session ended and Jedi dispersed to their assignments, Obi-Wan approached Guilliman. "You're making enemies within the Order." "I'm achieving results," Guilliman replied. "If the Jedi want to hate me for saving lives through competent leadership, that's their prerogative." He looked at Obi-Wan directly. "You voted in favor of my authority. Why?" "Because you were right about Botha-Wui, right about our tactical failures, and because I think you might be right about us being manipulated." Obi-Wan's expression was troubled. "I just hope you're right about Dooku's target. If Kamino falls because we held forces in reserve, then I'll take full responsibility for the strategic failure," Guilliman said. "But it won't fall, Master Kenobi, because Dooku isn't going to attack it." 3 days later, Count Dooku's fleet emerged from hyperspace above Coruscant. The Separatist armada was massive, 40 capital ships, hundreds of fighters, and at its center, the Invisible Hand, Dooku's command vessel. They'd bypassed every defensive perimeter through a combination of stolen Republic transponder codes and routes that suggested inside knowledge of Coruscant's defensive network, which meant Guilliman had been absolutely correct, and somewhere someone within the Republic had betrayed them. "All ships, battle stations," Guilliman commanded from the bridge of the Resolute. Around him, Admiral Yularen and his officers moved with practiced efficiency. "Deploy defensive screen, launch all fighters, and someone wake up Master Windu. Tell him his trap just sprung." The Battle of Coruscant had begun, and for the first time in 2 years of war, the Separatists found themselves facing not Jedi heroics, but calculated military brutality. Guilliman watched the tactical displays with cold satisfaction. Dooku had walked into a prepared defense with a fleet that expected only token resistance. "Target their command ship," Guilliman ordered. "I want Dooku to understand that this war just changed." The Republic fleet opened fire, and the skies above Coruscant burned with the fury of a Primarch's wrath. The Battle of Coruscant raged across 3 orbital zones and 1,700 kilometers of space. Count Dooku stood on the bridge of the Invisible Hand, watching Republic forces respond with coordination and precision that defied every intelligence report. This wasn't the chaotic, heroic defense he'd anticipated. This was systematic military destruction. "Admiral Trench," Dooku said to the Harch commander beside him, "you assured me Coruscant's defenses would be minimal. We're facing half the Republic's home fleet." "Impossible," Trench hissed, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Our intelligence confirmed." "Your intelligence was wrong," Dooku interrupted, watching another Separatist cruiser explode under concentrated fire. Through the Force, he felt something unusual, a void where tactical prediction should flow. As if some element of this battle existed outside the Force's currents. "Withdraw the assault wings. Reform our battle line. We're not fighting Jedi improvisation. We're fighting something else." Aboard the Resolute, Guilliman directed the defense with the precision of a master craftsman. His transhuman mind processed tactical data from 63 ships simultaneously, identifying weaknesses in the Separatist formation faster than any organic commander could manage. He'd studied Republic naval doctrine for 3 months, cataloged its strengths and failures, and implemented corrections that transformed individual warships into a cohesive weapon. "Their command ship is pulling back," Admiral Yularen reported. "They're reforming into defensive posture." "They've realized they walked into a trap," Guilliman said. "Good. Now we collapse the trap completely. Signal Group 7 and 9, flank approach, target their carrier screen. Group 3, concentrate fire on that Providence-class destroyer. I want it crippled, not destroyed. Crippled ships force the enemy to make rescue decisions. Dead ships are just debris." Commander Cody, positioned at the communication station, watched the Primarch work with something approaching awe. Every order served multiple purposes. Every tactical decision opened new opportunities. This wasn't battlefield improvisation. This was war as mathematics, cold and perfect. "Sir," Cody said, "we're receiving transmission from Master Windu. He's requesting permission to lead a fighter assault on the enemy flagship." Guilliman didn't even look up from the tactical display. Denied. "Master Windu is to maintain fleet command of the Camino Defense Force until we confirm no secondary attack. I won't have him abandon his post for personal glory." There was a long pause. Then Cody spoke carefully. "Sir, Master Windu is a Jedi Council member. He's not accustomed to being denied." "Then he'll learn today," Guilliman replied. "War isn't about what individuals are accustomed to, Commander. It's about what serves the strategic objective. Our objective is to repel this attack while capturing high-value intelligence assets. Master Windu's desire for heroic action doesn't serve that goal." The communication from Windu came through directly, his holographic form appearing beside Guilliman's command station. "Lord Commander, I can end this battle in minutes if you allow me." "You can create a dramatic moment that accomplishes nothing strategic," Guilliman interrupted. "Dooku's flagship is already withdrawing. If you board it, either you'll be captured, forcing us to divert resources to rescue you, or you'll kill Dooku, which deprives us of intelligence we desperately need. Neither outcome serves Republic interests." Mace Windu's expression was thunderous. "You overstep your authority." "I exercise the authority the Council voted to grant me," Guilliman replied coldly. If you wish to rescind that vote and take command yourself, do so. But make the decision now, Master Windu, because every second you spend arguing is a second the enemy uses to escape. For 3 heartbeats, the Jedi Master and the Primarch locked eyes across the holographic connection. Then Windu's image vanished without another word. "He's going to be a problem," Admiral Yularen observed quietly. "He already was," Guilliman said, "but that's a political concern for after we win this battle. Status of their command ship? Heavily damaged. They're preparing to jump to hyperspace." "Let them," Guilliman ordered, and saw surprise ripple through the bridge crew. "We've accomplished our strategic objective. Coruscant is defended. Their attack has failed, and we've destroyed or crippled 22 enemy capital ships. Pursuing Dooku into hyperspace would scatter our forces and potentially lead us into a secondary ambush. We take the victory and consolidate." It was pure Guilliman accepting success without overreaching for glory. The Battle of Coruscant ended with the Separatist fleet in full retreat. Republic casualties at 13% of projected losses, and Guilliman's reputation as a military genius cemented across the entire Republic. It also marked the point where the Jedi Order began to genuinely fear him. The Emergency Council session convened 3 hours after the last Separatist ship jumped to hyperspace. Guilliman attended in person, his armor still bearing scorch marks from a brief boarding action when Separatist commandos had attempted to capture the Resolute's bridge. He'd killed 7 of them personally with his bare hands before clone security could respond, an incident that had spread through the clone networks like wildfire. The Primarch, who fought beside his soldiers, the general who didn't hide behind command consoles. The stories were building, and they worried the Jedi deeply. "You countermanded my direct order," Mace Windu said without preamble. "During active combat, in front of the entire fleet command structure." "I exercised tactical authority the Council granted me," Guilliman replied. "You wanted to pursue personal glory at the expense of strategic coherence. I prevented that. The Republic won. Coruscant stands. Thousands of lives were saved. If your pride is wounded, Master Windu, I'll apologize. But I won't apologize for winning." "This isn't about pride," Windu said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "It's about the chain of command. The Jedi Council has led the Republic military for 2 years." "Led it poorly," Guilliman interrupted. "Your casualty rates are catastrophic. Your strategic coordination is non-existent. Your generals operate as independent actors pursuing personal objectives. I've studied your campaigns, Master Windu. You win battles through force-enhanced heroics while losing wars through institutional incompetence." The council chamber erupted. Several Jedi rose from their seats. Ki-Adi-Mundi's hand moved toward his lightsaber. Even Yoda's ears flattened against his head in a rare display of anger. Only Obi-Wan and Plo Koon remained calm, watching the confrontation with troubled expressions. "You go too far," Mace Windu said, his voice now dangerously quiet. "I speak truth," Guilliman replied without backing down. "You asked me to help win this war. I'm winning it. But victory requires acknowledging failure, and the Jedi Order cannot accept that its mystical approach to warfare has cost the Republic millions of lives and 3 years of bloodshed that competent military leadership could have ended. "The Force guides us," began Kit Fisto. "The Force is irrelevant to logistics," Guilliman cut him off. "It's irrelevant to supply chain management. It's irrelevant to strategic coordination across thousands of worlds. You have a supernatural ability that grants tactical advantages in close combat and individual operations. You've mistaken that tactical advantage for strategic wisdom. It's cost you this war." Yoda struck his Geimer stick against the floor, and silence fell. The ancient master's eyes were harder than Guilliman had ever seen them. Strong words, Lord Commander. True words perhaps some are, but forget not, invited here you were, Dinos. Guest of the Republic, you remain. Power we granted, power we can revoke. Then revoke it, Guilliman said simply. Return command to Jedi generals. Watch your clone casualties return to previous levels. Watch your territorial gains stall. Watch the separatists adapt to your predictable tactics. He looked at each council member in turn. I don't need your authority, masters. I'm not building a career here. I'm trying to survive long enough to find my way home. But while I'm trapped in your galaxy, I refuse to watch incompetence destroy civilization. You speak as if you could leave at any moment, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan observed carefully. Guilliman turned to him. I've been researching hyperspace technology and its relationship to the warp that brought me here. The fundamental physics are different, but there are similarities. I believe with sufficient resources and scientific expertise, I could engineer a return to my own galaxy. He paused. But that would require cooperation from Republic institutions. The Jedi Temple has extensive archives on dimensional phenomena. The Senate controls funding for research. If I antagonize both institutions sufficiently, I'll never leave. It was a subtle shift, acknowledging his own vulnerability, his dependence on Republic goodwill. Politically, it was brilliant. Strategically, it was calculated honesty. Yoda studied him for a long moment. Interesting this is. Power you wield, yet prisoner you remain. Help you we could, or hinder you we might. The ancient master's expression softened fractionally. But win the war you have begun to do. Foolish Sti. Abandoning success would be. We need to establish clear operational boundaries, Plo Koon said, his voice carrying the weight of compromise. Lord Guilliman receives tactical authority during active military operations, but strategic decisions, targets, force allocation, major offensives require council consultation. It was a reasonable middle ground. Guilliman would have preferred complete autonomy, but he recognized political reality. The Jedi Council needed to feel relevant. Better to give them consultation rights than provoke a direct confrontation. Acceptable, Guilliman said, though I reserve the right to act immediately during emergencies without waiting for council debate. Emergencies defined how? Mace Windu asked suspiciously. Situations where delay costs lives or strategic advantage, Guilliman replied. I'm not interested in semantic games, Master Windu. I'm interested in winning this war efficiently. If the Council can participate in strategic planning without slowing operational tempo, I welcome their input. If they become an obstacle, I'll work around them within the bounds of my granted authority. It was the closest thing to compromise Guilliman could offer, honesty about his intentions wrapped in enough diplomatic language to be palatable. The Council voted to continue his tactical authority with increased oversight. 7-5 again, the same margin as before. As the session ended, Obi-Wan approached Guilliman privately. You're playing a dangerous game, making enemies of the Jedi while consolidating military power. It looks like you're attempting a coup. I'm attempting victory, Guilliman replied. But your observation is noted. Perception matters in politics as much as reality. He looked at the Jedi Master directly. I need allies within the Order, Master Kenobi. Jedi who understand that winning this war requires adaptation. Are you such a Jedi? Obi-Wan considered carefully. I am a Jedi who believes in the Republic and wants to see it survive. If your methods achieve that, I'll support them. But the moment I believe you're pursuing personal power rather than Republic victory, that support ends. Fair enough, Guilliman said. Then let me share something that concerns me. Today's battle proved my assessment of Dooku's strategy was correct, but it also proved something else. Someone provided Dooku with Republic transponder codes and defensive routes. Someone within our own government is betraying us. Obi-Wan's expression hardened. You're certain? Admiral Yularen's intelligence officers confirmed it. The Separatists couldn't have bypassed our security without inside assistance. Guilliman pulled up encrypted files on his tactical datapad. I've been conducting quiet investigations into Republic command structure. There are patterns, strategic decisions that benefit the Separatists, intelligence leaks at critical moments, financial networks that connect both sides of this war. You're describing a conspiracy at the highest levels of government, Obi-Wan said slowly. I'm describing what the evidence suggests, Guilliman replied, and it points towards someone with access to Senate intelligence, military coordination, and political authority to orchestrate both. He paused deliberately. Someone like Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. The words hung in the air like an unexploded bomb. Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan stared at Guilliman with a mixture of shock and disbelief. You're accusing the Chancellor of treason? I'm observing patterns, Guilliman said carefully. Palpatine has consolidated more emergency powers than any Chancellor in Republic history. He's extended his term indefinitely using war justifications. Every Senate reform he proposes increases executive authority while reducing checks and balances. And somehow, despite controlling the galaxy's largest intelligence apparatus, he consistently fails to prevent major separatist operations. Those are dangerous thoughts, Lord Commander. They're logical conclusions, Guilliman corrected. In my Imperium, I fought a civil war against my own brothers because we failed to recognize manipulation until it was too late. I won't make that mistake twice. He looked at Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan with absolute seriousness. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to investigate. Use your Jedi resources. Look into Palpatine's political history, his financial networks, his personal associations. If I'm wrong, you'll prove it and I'll apologize. If you're right, the Republic is already lost, Obi-Wan finished quietly. No, Guilliman said firmly. If I'm right, the Republic can still be saved, but only if we identify the threat before it's too late. Obi-Wan. Silent for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. I'll investigate, quietly. But Lord Commander, if you're wrong about this, you'll have made an enemy of the most powerful man in the galaxy. I've made enemies of gods, Master Kenobi, Guilliman replied. I'm not afraid of politicians. As Obi-Wan departed, Guilliman returned to his quarters and encrypted communications with Commander Cody. Status of the investigation I requested? Cody's holographic form appeared, his expression troubled. Sir, we've been monitoring Chancellor Palpatine's activities as requested, and, sir, we found something. Financial records linking Senate accounts to separatist banking clans, encrypted communications between the Chancellor's office and individuals in separatist territories. Nothing conclusive enough for charges, but enough to raise questions. Guilliman felt that familiar cold certainty settling into his chest, the feeling he'd had on Calth when he'd realized Lorgar's betrayal, or on Terra when he'd understood the depths of the Horus heresy. The pattern was clear now. The Republic's Supreme Chancellor was orchestrating both sides of the war. Continue monitoring, Guilliman ordered, but maintain absolute operational security. If Palpatine is what I suspect, he has eyes everywhere. Sir, Cody said carefully, if the Chancellor is the enemy, why hasn't he simply had you eliminated? He controls the clone army. One word from him and... Because I'm useful, Guilliman interrupted. I'm winning his war for him, consolidating military power, creating precedents for executive authority over military operations. If Palpatine is planning what I think he's planning, I'm building the very structure he'll use to transform the Republic into an empire." The irony was bitter. Roboute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, architect of the Imperium's greatest reforms, was potentially constructing the framework for galactic tyranny. Unless he could stop it. "Commander," Guilliman said quietly, "how loyal are the clones to the Chancellor?" Cody was silent for several seconds, a lifetime for a soldier trained to respond instantly. When he finally spoke, his voice carried uncomfortable truth. "Absolutely loyal, sir. The Chancellor has been our advocate since we were created. Without him, we're just property. He's the closest thing we have to a patron." "Understood," Guilliman said. "Dismissed, Commander." As the hologram faded, Guilliman stood alone in his quarters and contemplated the strategic situation. He was trapped in an alien galaxy, fighting a war orchestrated by a hidden enemy, building military systems that could be turned against the very republic he was defending. And he had no clear path home. For the first time since arriving in this strange universe, Roboute Guilliman felt the weight of true uncertainty. In the Imperium, he'd known his purpose. Here, he was improvising, and improvisation he'd learned across 3 centuries of warfare was how empires fell. The Senate Defense Committee meeting room was a monument to bureaucratic grandeur. 300 seats arranged in concentric circles, holographic displays showing casualty reports and territorial maps, and at the center podium, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine presiding with the patient demeanor of a teacher, instructing slow students. Guilliman sat in the military advisors section, his massive armored form incongruous among politicians in expensive robes, and watched democracy perform its slow suicide. The Chancellor's proposal to extend emergency military powers for another term is essential, Senator Orn Freetop proclaimed, his multiple chins wobbling with conviction. "Lord Commander Guilliman's recent victories prove we're winning, but we cannot risk changing leadership mid-war. The emergency powers were supposed to be temporary," Senator Bail Organa countered, his voice carrying the weariness of a man who'd fought this battle too many times. 3 years of emergency measures, 3 years of suspended civil liberties. At what point does temporary become permanent? Guilliman watched Palpatine's face. The Chancellor maintained an expression of troubled concern, as if he regretted the necessity of the powers he'd accumulated. It was masterful political theater. The reluctant dictator. The burden-bearer who accepted authority only because duty demanded it. Exactly how tyrants always presented themselves. "Senator Organa raises valid concerns," Palpatine said with practiced humility. "I too long for the day when we can return to normal governance. But Lord Commander Guilliman's assessment has been clear. The war enters a critical phase. The Separatists are weakened but not defeated. If we destabilize our command structure now, we risk losing everything we've achieved." Every eye turned to Guilliman. He'd been brought to this committee meeting specifically to provide military justification for Palpatine's power extension. The Chancellor had briefed him beforehand, a private conversation in Palpatine's Senate office where the elderly statesman had spoken of duty, necessity, and the burden of leadership. Guilliman had nodded and agreed to everything, and then immediately ordered Commander Cody to investigate every senator who'd spoken in that briefing's favor. Now, standing at the podium with the entire Senate Defense Committee awaiting his assessment, Guilliman made his choice. "The Supreme Chancellor is correct that destabilizing command structure mid-war is strategically inadvisable," Guilliman said, his voice carrying the absolute authority that made even senators sit straighter. However, the Chancellor's framing contains a false assumption. that maintaining emergency powers and maintaining effective command structure are the same thing. Palpatine's expression didn't change, but Guilliman's transhuman senses caught the microscopic tension in the Chancellor's shoulders. He just deviated from the script. "I've reviewed Republic constitutional law," Guilliman continued. "Emergency powers grant the Chancellor extraordinary authority over military coordination, resource allocation, and strategic decision-making. These powers were designed for crisis response, rapid decision-making when the Senate cannot achieve consensus quickly enough to address existential threats." "Exactly," Senator Ta interjected, "which is why—" "I wasn't finished, Senator," Guilliman said coldly, and the Twi'lek fell silent. Emergency powers were never intended to replace normal governance for years at a time. They were designed as temporary measures with sunset clauses, specifically to prevent exactly what's happening now: the gradual transformation of democratic authority into autocratic control. The committee chamber erupted in competing shouts. Palpatine raised a hand, calling for order with the gentle authority that had made him so politically effective. "Lord Commander, are you suggesting I've overstepped my constitutional authority?" "I'm suggesting the Republic has allowed emergency measures to become permanent governance," Guilliman replied. "Whether that overstepping is intentional or simply institutional inertia is a question for this body to determine." He pulled up constitutional documents on the holographic display. The Republic's founders understood that democracies die not through violent overthrow, but through gradual centralization of power. They built safeguards. This committee has ignored those safeguards for 3 years. Bail Organa leaned forward, his expression intense. "What do you propose, Lord Commander?" "A compromise," Guilliman said. "The Chancellor retains operational authority over military coordination. That authority has proven effective and shouldn't be disrupted mid-war. However, the Senate reasserts oversight authority over strategic objectives, war goals, and post-war planning. Emergency powers continue, but with defined limitations and mandatory quarterly review." It was a political masterstroke. Guilliman was giving Palpatine enough authority to continue prosecuting the war, while simultaneously constraining his ability to use that authority for political transformation. He was also positioning himself as a moderate voice, not challenging the Chancellor's leadership, just calling for constitutional safeguards. Palpatine smiled warmly. "A wise compromise, Lord Commander. I've always maintained that my authority derives from the Senate's trust. If this body wishes to reassert oversight, I welcome it. My only concern is for the Republic's survival." But beneath that warm smile, Darth Sidious was recalculating. The Primarch had just demonstrated something dangerous: political sophistication to match his military genius. Sidious had assumed Guilliman was a warrior, potentially useful but ultimately controllable through military authority and clone loyalty. He'd underestimated. The being from beyond the stars understood power's true nature. The committee voted to implement Guilliman's compromise. Palpatine's emergency powers continued, but with renewed Senate oversight. It was a minor setback for Sidious's grand design, but manageable. The clones still answered ultimately to him. Order 66 remained in place, and the Jedi remained blind to the trap closing around them. After the committee adjourned, Bail Organa approached Guilliman in the Senate corridors. "That was either very brave or very foolish, Lord Commander. The Chancellor is not accustomed to being checked." "The Chancellor is a politician," Guilliman replied. "Politicians accept checks when resistance becomes more costly than compromise. I gave him a way to maintain his authority while appearing to embrace oversight. He'll accept because rejection would reveal ambitions he's worked hard to conceal." Organa studied the Primarch with new appreciation. "You see it too. The pattern, the centralization. I've seen it before, Guilliman said quietly, in my own Imperium. Power consolidating in the name of necessity until necessity becomes permanent. If the Republic doesn't reverse this trajectory soon, you won't recognize what emerges from this war. Some of us have been fighting this battle for years, Organa said, but we lack military credibility. The Senate listens when you speak because you've won battles. Will you continue speaking? Guilliman considered the offer carefully. Aligning with Senate reformers would make him political, not just military. It would make him a target. It would also give him resources to investigate Palpatine and potentially stop whatever the Chancellor was planning. I'll speak truth as I see it, Guilliman said finally. But understand, Senator, I'm not a politician. I'm a general trying to win a war and find my way home. If those goals align with your reform agenda, we can work together. If they diverge, I'll prioritize victory over politics. Fair enough, Organa replied, though I suspect you'll find that in a war like this, politics and victory are inseparable. As Organa departed, Guilliman felt the familiar weight of command settling across his shoulders. In the Imperium, he'd governed 500 worlds while commanding a legion. He'd balanced military necessity against civilian needs, strategic objectives against humanitarian concerns. He'd thought that experience would translate cleanly to this new galaxy. Instead, he'd found something more complex. The Republic wasn't just fighting a military war, it was fighting for its own soul, and Guilliman had just positioned himself at the center of that political struggle. His encrypted comm bead chimed. Obi-Wan Kenobi's voice tight with urgency. Lord Commander, we need to meet privately. I found something about the Chancellor. Guilliman's pulse quickened, the transhuman equivalent of an adrenaline surge. Location? The Works, Industrial Sector 7. 1 hour. Come alone. The Works District was a maze of abandoned factories and industrial infrastructure, remnants of Coruscant's manufacturing past before the planet became entirely dependent on off-world production. Guilliman moved through the shadows with the practiced ease of a warrior who'd infiltrated enemy positions across 100 worlds. His armor's stealth systems, designed to hide from demon senses and Xenos augurs, made him nearly invisible to Republic surveillance. Obi-Wan waited in a half-collapsed warehouse, his lightsaber providing the only illumination. The Jedi Master looked troubled in a way Guilliman hadn't seen before, not afraid but carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. Master Kenobi, Guilliman greeted him. What have you found? Obi-Wan pulled up a holoprojector, displaying financial records and communication intercepts. I investigated as you suggested, quietly using Jedi intelligence resources that operate independently of Senate oversight. And Lord Commander, you were right. Palpatine has connections to separatist leadership through intermediaries, financial transfers that don't make sense unless he's funding both sides, encrypted communications that suggest coordination. Guilliman studied the data with cold precision. It was damning but not conclusive, circumstantial evidence that raised questions without providing definitive proof. Palpatine had been careful. The connections were laundered through enough intermediaries to maintain plausible deniability. This isn't enough for charges, Guilliman said. A competent defense could explain every transaction as legitimate intelligence operations or coincidence. I know, Obi-Wan replied, frustration evident in his voice. But there's more. I consulted the Council about Palpatine's Force presence. Master Yoda has noticed something disturbing. There's a darkness surrounding the Chancellor. Not obvious, not blatant, but present, as if he's concealing his true nature. Could he be a Sith? Guilliman asked bluntly. Obi-Wan looked pained. The Sith were destroyed 1,000 years ago. There are only 2 at any time. a master and an apprentice. Count Dooku is one, which means if Palpatine is the other. He trailed off, unable or unwilling to complete the thought. Then the Republic's Supreme Chancellor is orchestrating a war against himself, Guilliman finished. Using the conflict to destroy both the Jedi Order and Republic democracy simultaneously. It's brilliant strategy, Master Kenobi. Diabolical, but brilliant. We need proof, Obi-Wan said. Real proof. Evidence that can't be dismissed or explained away. But I don't know how to get it. Palpatine has built layers of protection. Even if we expose these financial connections, he could claim their intelligence operations. We need something undeniable. Guilliman was silent for a moment, his strategic mind working through possibilities. In the Imperium, dealing with traitors had been simpler. Execute them and purge their followers. But the Republic still maintained rule of law. They needed evidence, trials, constitutional process. Unless they abandoned those principles, unless they became the thing they claimed to oppose. We continue gathering evidence, Guilliman said finally. Carefully, quietly. No confrontation until we have proof sufficient to convince the Senate and Jedi Council simultaneously. If we move too soon, Palpatine will use his emergency powers to brand us traitors and turn the clone army against us. The clones, Obi-Wan said softly. They're loyal to the Chancellor. If it comes to conflict. I'm working on that, Guilliman interrupted. Commander Cody and other senior clone officers are beginning to question certain orders. Not openly, not yet. But the clones are soldiers, not automatons. They respond to logic and evidence. If we can prove Palpatine's betrayal conclusively, some of them will choose Republic over Chancellor. Some, Obi-Wan repeated. Not all. In a civil war, you never get all, Guilliman said grimly. You get whoever you can convince before the shooting starts. They stood in silence for a moment. Two warriors, from different galaxies contemplating the possibility of civil war within a civil war. Then Obi-Wan spoke again. There's one more thing. Master Yoda asked me to discuss it with you. The Council is divided about your role. Some see you as essential to victory. Others see you as a threat to Jedi authority. Master Windu particularly believes you're using the war to build personal power. Master Windu judges others by his own standards, Guilliman replied. He sees power as something to be pursued and controlled. I see it as a tool to achieve objectives. I don't want to rule the Republic, Master Kenobi. I want to save it long enough to find my way home. I believe you, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan said, but belief isn't enough. The Council needs assurance, a gesture that proves you're fighting for the Republic, not yourself. Guilliman understood immediately what Obi-Wan was asking. The Jedi Council wanted him to voluntarily limit his own authority, to demonstrate subservience to their oversight, to prove he wasn't another Palpatine consolidating power through military success. It was politically reasonable and strategically foolish. I'll consider it, Guilliman said, which was diplomatic for no. But right now, the immediate threat isn't my ambition, it's Palpatine's. Focus on that investigation. Find me proof I can use. And Master Kenobi. He looked at the Jedi directly. When this comes to confrontation, and it will, I need to know the Jedi Order will act, not meditate, not debate. Act decisively against a proven enemy. Obi-Wan met his gaze. If we can prove Palpatine is Sith, the Jedi will act. But Lord Commander, understand, removing a sitting Chancellor without unimpeachable proof would destroy the Republic as surely as letting a Sith rule it. We must be certain. Certainty is a luxury, Guilliman replied, but I understand your concern. Continue the investigation. I'll continue winning the war, and perhaps between us we'll save this republic before it devours itself." As Obi-Wan departed into the Coruscant night, Guilliman remained in the abandoned warehouse and activated his most secure communication channel. Not to clone officers, not to Republic intelligence, but to a network he'd been building quietly for months. Scientists, engineers, and researchers studying dimensional physics and hyperspace theory. If Palpatine was orchestrating both sides of this war, then the conflict might never truly end. The Sith Lord would extend it indefinitely, using perpetual crisis to maintain emergency powers until he could transform the Republic into an empire. Guilliman needed an exit strategy. He needed to find his way home before the trap closed completely. "Status report," he commanded. A holographic scientist appeared, a moon theoretical physicist named San Hill, no relation to the separatist banker. "Lord Commander, our analysis of the spatial anomaly that brought you here suggests a dimensional rift between your galaxy and ours. The rift was temporary, but it left quantum signatures we can track. With sufficient power and the right harmonic frequency, we believe we could create a controlled rift." "Timeline?" Guilliman demanded. 18 months, possibly longer." "We need resources that require Senate authorization, exotic matter, hypermatter reactors, and access to restricted hyperspace research. The Chancellor's office has been unhelpful." Of course, Palpatine had been unhelpful. If Guilliman could leave, he'd take his strategic genius with him. The Sith Lord needed the Primarch to remain trapped, useful, and ultimately controllable. "Continue the research," Guilliman ordered. "I'll acquire the resources through other channels. Senator Organa may have access to funding outside Senate oversight." "Understood, sir, but Lord Commander, even if we succeed, the energy requirements are immense. Creating a dimensional rift would require power output comparable to the Death Star's super laser. Every energy signature monitor in the galaxy would detect it. Whoever you're hiding from would know immediately what you're attempting." Guilliman smiled coldly. "Then we'll make sure we're ready for that confrontation when it comes." As the hologram faded, Guilliman stood alone in the darkness and contemplated his strategic position. He was trapped in an alien galaxy, fighting a war orchestrated by an enemy who controlled the government he served, building military systems that could be turned against him, and working to escape through means that would inevitably trigger confrontation with that hidden enemy. It was, objectively, one of the most complex strategic situations he'd ever faced, and Roboute Guilliman had always performed best under pressure. The Outer Rim campaign had been grinding forward for 6 months under Guilliman's strategic coordination, pushing separatist forces back system by system with methodical precision that frustrated both allies and enemies. The Jedi wanted dramatic victories. The Senate wanted headlines. Guilliman gave them efficiency, unsexy, brutal, and effective. Clone casualties had dropped 37%. Territory reclaimed exceeded all projections, and the separatist military infrastructure was crumbling under sustained, coordinated pressure. But tonight, standing in the command center of the Resolute above the contested world of Umbara, Guilliman wasn't thinking about tactical victories. He was thinking about the encrypted data packet Commander Cody had just delivered. "Sir," Cody said quietly, ensuring no other bridge officers could hear, "The intelligence you requested. We've been monitoring Chancellor Palpatine's private communications for 3 months using clone intelligence networks. This morning, we intercepted something significant." Guilliman opened the file on his personal datapad, encrypted communications between Palpatine's office and a separatist council member. Not routed through official channels, not logged in Senate intelligence records, and most damning, discussing operational details of Republic fleet movements before those movements had been officially authorized. Palpatine wasn't just connected to the Separatists, he was actively coordinating with them. "Can this be authenticated?" Guilliman asked. "Yes, sir. 3 independent verification protocols confirm the encryption signatures match Palpatine's personal communication systems. This isn't planted evidence or forgery. It's genuine." Cody paused. "Sir, if the Chancellor is committing treason, then we're in the middle of the most sophisticated military conspiracy in galactic history," Guilliman finished. "And we need to move carefully. Commander, how many clone officers know about this investigation?" 17 across different battalions, all personally loyal to you rather than abstract authority. All understand operational security. Cody's voice carried weight. "But sir, the rest of the clone army follows the Chancellor without question. If you move against Palpatine, you'll be fighting 3 million clone troopers programmed to obey him absolutely." Programmed. The word sent cold understanding through Guilliman's transhuman mind. He'd studied clone conditioning protocols, reviewed Kaminoan psychological engineering, analyzed loyalty indoctrination techniques. The clones weren't just trained. They were designed for absolute obedience to specific command authorities. "Commander, hypothetical question," Guilliman said carefully. "If orders from the Chancellor conflicted with orders from Jedi generals, which would the clones obey?" Cody was silent for 5 full seconds. When he spoke, his voice carried uncomfortable truth. "The Chancellor, sir. Always. It's built into our conditioning at the deepest level. We can question Jedi, we can adapt their orders based on tactical reality, but the Chancellor's authority is absolute. Even if the Chancellor ordered you to execute Jedi generals?" Another pause, longer this time. "Sir, there are contingency orders, classified protocols that supersede normal command structure. I don't have clearance for most of them, but I know they exist. Orders that would activate under specific conditions." Guilliman felt pieces clicking into place. Palpatine had spent years building this trap, created an army genetically loyal to him, positioned Jedi as battlefield commanders so they'd be isolated and vulnerable, orchestrated a war that justified militarization and emergency powers. And somewhere in the clone conditioning, hidden beneath layers of classified protocols, there was almost certainly an order to eliminate the Jedi entirely. "Commander Cody," Guilliman said quietly, "you need to understand something. The investigation we've been conducting isn't just about political corruption. It's about preventing genocide. If Palpatine is what I suspect, if he's orchestrating this entire war, then at some point he'll trigger those contingency orders. Every Jedi in the galaxy will be targeted simultaneously, and the clone army will execute them without question." Cody's expression was the most troubled Guilliman had ever seen on a clone's face. "Sir, if what you're saying is true, we'd be complicit in murdering the generals we've fought beside for 3 years, brothers who've saved our lives, officers we respect." "Unless we prevent it," Guilliman replied, "which requires 2 things. First, undeniable proof of Palpatine's treason that will convince the Jedi Council to act. Second, a way to neutralize those contingency orders before they're activated. Sir, the contingency protocols are hardwired into our conditioning. They can't be removed without complete psychological reconditioning, even if we wanted to resist." Cody stopped, struggling with the implications. "We might not be able to." Guilliman placed a massive gauntleted hand on the clone commander's shoulder. "Then we make sure you never receive those orders. We remove Palpatine from power before he can trigger his endgame. And we do it legally, through Republic institutions, so the clone army has no legitimate orders to execute." It was a bold plan, perhaps an impossible plan, But Roboute Guilliman had built an empire from the ashes of old night. He'd united 500 worlds through strategic brilliance and administrative genius. He could save one republic from a Sith Lord's conspiracy. He hoped. The emergency Jedi Council session convened at dawn, summoned by Obi-Wan Kenobi with a priority that demanded immediate attendance. All 12 masters were present, along with Guilliman, his armor bearing fresh combat damage from the Umbara campaign. The Primarch had fought alongside clone troopers for 16 hours straight, and his presence radiated the exhaustion and determination of a general who refused to rest while his soldiers bled. "Masters," Obi-Wan began without preamble, "Lord Commander Guilliman has evidence that Supreme Chancellor Palpatine is actively coordinating with separatist leadership. Evidence that suggests the Chancellor is orchestrating both sides of this war." The council chamber erupted. Several Jedi leaped to their feet. Mace Windu's hand moved to his lightsaber. Even Yoda looked shocked, an expression Guilliman suspected the ancient master rarely displayed. "Impossible," Ki-Adi-Mundi declared. "The Chancellor has been the Republic's staunchest defender." "The Chancellor has been its greatest threat," Guilliman interrupted, activating holographic displays. "For 6 months, I've been investigating financial networks, communication patterns, and strategic decisions. Every analysis pointed toward a single conclusion. Someone with absolute authority over Republic military coordination was ensuring this war continued indefinitely. Someone who benefited from perpetual crisis. Someone who could use military emergency to consolidate political power." He brought up the intercepted communications, encryption signatures, authentication protocols, undeniable evidence of coordination between Palpatine's office and separatist council members. "This is the Supreme Chancellor committing treason," Guilliman said flatly, discussing Republic fleet movements with enemy commanders, coordinating attacks to maximize political impact, using this war as theater to justify transformation of the Republic into an autocratic state. Mace Windu studied the evidence with the intensity of a warrior analyzing an opponent. "If this is genuine, and I emphasize if, it represents the greatest political conspiracy in Republic history. But Lord Commander, you understand what you're suggesting? Arresting a sitting Chancellor requires Senate approval. Without it, we'd be staging a military coup." "Then we get Senate approval," Guilliman replied. "Senator Organa and his Reform Coalition have been building a case against Palpatine's emergency powers for years. This evidence gives them the weapon they need, or we present this to the Senate simultaneously with the Jedi Council's denunciation. Force Palpatine to answer charges publicly." "He'll deny everything," Obi-Wan said. "Claim the communications are forgeries. Use his political network to discredit the evidence." "Let him," Guilliman said, "because while he's defending himself publicly, we'll be conducting a comprehensive investigation with full Senate authorization. His financial networks, his private communications, his political associates, and Master Yoda." He turned to the ancient Jedi. "You'll be investigating his Force presence. You've sensed darkness around him for months. Now you have justification to probe deeper." Yoda's ears twitched thoughtfully. "Dangerous this path is. If wrong, we are. Destroy the Republic's civilian authority. We will. If right, we are." He trailed off, the implications too dire to voice. "If you're right, you save the Republic from a Sith Lord who's spent decades engineering its destruction," Guilliman finished. "Master Yoda, I've fought conspiracies that nearly destroyed civilizations. I've seen how corruption operates from within. This evidence is real. Palpatine is the enemy. And if you don't act now, he'll trigger whatever endgame he's planned before you can stop him." Plo Koon spoke for the first time. Lord Commander, you've proven yourself a military genius and competent political analyst, but you're asking us to initiate what could become civil war within the Republic itself. The clone army is loyal to Palpatine. If we move against him, they may turn on the Jedi. They will turn on the Jedi, Guilliman corrected. Commander Cody has confirmed the existence of classified contingency orders, protocols that would activate under specific conditions. Conditions I believe Palpatine will trigger the moment he feels threatened. If you don't move against him now, while you have surprise and legal justification, you'll face those orders without warning. The council was silent. Guilliman could see the calculation in every master's eyes. This was the kind of decision that defined civilizations: act on incomplete evidence and risk civil war, or wait for perfect proof and potentially face orchestrated genocide. "We vote," Mace Windu said finally, "whether to present this evidence to the Senate and initiate formal investigation of the Chancellor. Those in favor?" 7 hands rose. Yoda, Plo Koon, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Kit Fisto, Agen Kolar, Saesee Tiin. And after a long hesitation, Mace Windu himself. 7 votes, barely a majority, but enough. "Then it's decided," Windu said, his voice carrying the weight of irrevocable choice. "We move against the Chancellor. May the Force be with us, because we're about to need it." The Senate emergency session was chaos. Senator Bail Organa had called for immediate investigation of Supreme Chancellor Palpatine based on military intelligence suggesting treason. Guilliman stood at the military advisor's podium, his armored form a symbol of martial authority, and presented evidence with the clinical precision of a prosecutor. Palpatine sat in the Chancellor's elevated position, his expression one of wounded dignity. He looked like a kindly grandfather, falsely accused by ungrateful children. It was masterful political theater, now. "These allegations are gray," Palpatine said, his voice carrying across the Senate chamber. "I've devoted my life to the Republic's service. To be accused of treason by those I've trusted with military authority." He paused, letting hurt register on his weathered face. "But I understand. War creates paranoia. Lord Commander Guilliman, despite his brilliance, comes from a galaxy where conspiracy and betrayal are commonplace. Perhaps he sees shadows where none exist." It was a brilliant counterattack. Palpatine was painting Guilliman as a traumatized foreigner, projecting his own galaxy's darkness onto the Republic. Several senators nodded sympathetically. "Chancellor Palpatine," Bail Organa said firmly, "the evidence Commander Guilliman presents includes authenticated communications from your office. Will you submit to independent investigation?" "Of course," Palpatine said immediately. "I have nothing to hide. Let Senate intelligence conduct a comprehensive review. I'm confident they'll find these communications are either forgeries or legitimate intelligence operations that Lord Commander Guilliman has misinterpreted." Guilliman felt the trap closing. Palpatine had just agreed to investigation while simultaneously positioning himself as cooperative and transparent. When Senate intelligence, which Palpatine controlled through years of political appointments, inevitably cleared him, the Chancellor would emerge stronger than ever. "I propose an independent investigative body," Guilliman said, his voice cutting through the Senate's murmuring. "Not Senate intelligence, which reports to the Chancellor. Not Jedi investigators who have obvious bias. A coalition of neutral senators from non-aligned worlds overseen by this body's Sergeant-at-Arms with full subpoena authority." Palpatine's smile never wavered, but Guilliman's transhuman senses caught the microscopic tension. The Chancellor hadn't expected that countermove. "An excellent suggestion," Palpatine said smoothly, "though I would note that such investigation will take months, during which time war continues. Soldiers die, worlds burn. Perhaps," he looked around the Senate chamber with practiced concern, "we should expedite this matter." Allow me to address the specific charges immediately and provide documentation that explains every questioned transaction. No, Mace Windu's voice rang out. The Jedi Master had entered the Senate chamber, his presence commanding immediate attention. Chancellor, the Jedi Council supports immediate independent investigation. Furthermore, until that investigation concludes, the Council requests you voluntarily suspend your emergency powers and submit to temporary Senate oversight. The Senate exploded in competing shouts. This was beyond politics now. This was the Jedi Council openly challenging the Chancellor's authority. It was either the first step towards saving the Republic or the beginning of civil war. Palpatine stood slowly, his expression transforming from wounded dignity to grave concern. Master Windu, I've worked alongside the Jedi for years. I've supported your order through Senate opposition, and now you demand I surrender authority during the Republic's most desperate hour. He turned to address the full Senate. My friends, I fear we're witnessing something terrible. The Jedi, unaccustomed to civilian oversight, are attempting to seize political control, using manufactured evidence, demanding authority over a democratically elected government. It was a masterstroke. Palpatine had turned Jedi concern into Jedi conspiracy. Half the Senate was already nodding, convinced the warrior order was staging a coup. The Jedi seek only truth, Yoda said, his ancient voice carrying across the chamber. If innocent you are, Chancellor, prove it you can. If guilty, face justice, you must. Palpatine looked directly at Yoda, and for just a moment, a fraction of a second, his mask slipped. Guilliman saw it. The ancient Jedi Master saw it. And in that instant, both understood they were looking at something far older and darker than a corrupt politician. They were looking at a Sith Lord who'd spent decades building this moment. Very well, Palpatine said quietly. If the Jedi Council and the Senate demand investigation, I'll cooperate fully. But I want it noted, this sets a dangerous precedent. Today, you investigate me without proof. Tomorrow, any politician can be targeted by military and religious authority working in concert. The Republic I've served may not survive such erosion of civilian government. The Senate session ended with authorization for independent investigation. Palpatine had agreed to cooperate while poisoning the process politically. Half the Senate now saw this as Jedi overreach. The other half saw it as necessary accountability. The Republic was dividing along exactly the lines Palpatine needed. As senators filed out, Guilliman found himself approached by Commander Fox, head of the Coruscant Guard. The clone commander's expression was carefully neutral, the face of a soldier following orders he didn't fully understand. Lord Commander, Fox said quietly, the Chancellor has requested increased security. He believes the Jedi may attempt extrajudicial action against him. I've been ordered to deploy additional clone battalions around Senate security. Guilliman understood immediately. Palpatine was positioning clone forces to protect himself while framing it as defense against Jedi aggression. If the Jedi moved against the Chancellor now, they'd have to fight through clone troopers, creating exactly the image of Jedi coup Palpatine wanted. Commander Fox, Guilliman said carefully, you understand the allegations against the Chancellor. I understand orders, sir, Fox replied. And my orders come from the Republic's elected leader. It was the answer of a soldier who didn't want to think about what he was being asked to do. Guilliman had seen that expression on guard regiments tasked with enforcing unpopular imperial policies. Good soldiers following bad orders because questioning authority was more frightening than moral compromise. Understood, Commander, Guilliman said. But remember, your ultimate loyalty is to the Republic, not any single individual, even the Chancellor. Fox's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Understanding. Or perhaps just confusion about where duty led when authority fractured. That night, in a secure communications chamber deep within the Jedi Temple, Guilliman met with the inner circle who now understood the truth. Yoda, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Plo Koon, Bail Organa, and Commander Cody, representing the handful of clone officers who'd chosen Republic over Chancellor. Palpatine is preparing his endgame, Guilliman said, without preamble. He's lost political surprise but retained strategic position. The clone army still follows him. Senate intelligence still serves him. And now he's framed any action against him as Jedi coup. Then we've failed, Ki Adi Mundi said heavily. We forced his hand, Guilliman corrected, which means whatever he planned to do gradually, he'll now have to do rapidly. That creates opportunities. Rushed operations have vulnerabilities. What do you propose? Mace Windu asked. Guilliman pulled up tactical displays, not of battlefields, but of Coruscant itself. Palpatine's power rests on 3 pillars: the clone army's loyalty, Senate political support, and his hidden identity as a Sith Lord. We can't break all 3 simultaneously, but we can break one decisively. Which one? Obi-Wan asked. His hidden identity, Guilliman replied. Master Yoda, you said you sensed darkness around him. Can you probe deeper? Force him to reveal his true nature? Yoda's ears flattened. Dangerous such confrontation would be. If Sith Lord he is, powerful beyond measure. Fight him alone, I cannot guarantee victory. You won't fight him alone, Guilliman said. I'll be with you, along with every Jedi Master who can be spared. We confront Palpatine directly. Demand he submit to Force examination. If he's innocent, he'll allow it. If he's guilty, he'll reveal himself fighting back. And if he reveals himself as Sith, the clone army will still follow his orders, Mace Windu pointed out. Not if those orders conflict with their foundational programming, Guilliman replied. Commander Cody, clone conditioning emphasizes loyalty to the Republic above all else. If Palpatine is exposed as an enemy of the Republic, sworn to its destruction, does that supersede his authority as Chancellor? Cody was silent, processing the question with the methodical precision of clone training. It would create conflict in our conditioning. We're programmed to follow the chain of command, but we're also programmed to defend the Republic against all enemies, foreign and domestic. If the Chancellor is proven to be a Sith, sworn enemies of the Republic, that might override specific loyalty protocols. Might, Guilliman repeated, not certainty. But enough doubt to fracture clone unity? Some will follow Palpatine regardless, but others will choose Republic over individual authority. You're proposing we start a civil war, Bail Organa said quietly. I'm proposing we win the civil war that's already started, Guilliman corrected. Palpatine orchestrated the separatist conflict to destroy the Republic and Jedi simultaneously. We expose him, and that orchestrated war ends. Yes, there will be fighting. Yes, clones will die. But it will be focused, contained conflict instead of galaxy-spanning genocide. The room was silent as each person contemplated the enormity of what Guilliman proposed. Force a confrontation with the Supreme Chancellor, expose him as Sith, risk civil war between clone factions, all based on evidence that was damning but not yet legally conclusive. There's another consideration, Yoda said softly. If fail, we do. If Palpatine defeats us, the Jedi Order ends. Wiped out we will be, and the Republic becomes Empire. If you don't act, that outcome is guaranteed, Guilliman replied. Palpatine's contingency orders exist. He will use them. The only question is whether you face that moment prepared or surprised. Mace Windu looked at each council member present, then at Guilliman. then at Commander Cody. Finally, he nodded slowly. "We move against the Chancellor. Tomorrow, before he can consolidate his position further." He looked directly at Guilliman. "Lord Commander, you've led us to this moment. Will you stand with us when we confront him?" Guilliman met the Jedi Master's eyes. "I've fought demons and gods, Master Windu. I've stood against enemies that would make your Sith Lords look like petty warlords. I'll stand with you against Palpatine. And when this is over, win or lose, the galaxy will know the truth." "Then tomorrow," Mace Windu said, his voice carrying the finality of irrevocable decision, "we end this conspiracy, one way or another." In his Senate office, wrapped in shadows and ancient Sith power, Darth Sidious smiled. The Jedi were coming. The Primarch was leading them into confrontation, and hidden within every clone trooper's mind, waiting for activation, was Order 66. Let them come. Let them believe they'd exposed him. Let them think they could win. He'd been planning this moment for decades, and tomorrow the Jedi Order would learn why the Sith always survived. The Chancellor's office occupied the apex of the Senate building, wrapped in transparent steel that offered panoramic views of Coruscant's endless cityscape. Mace Windu led the Jedi strike team, himself, Kit Fisto, Agen Kolar, and Ceci Teen, through corridors emptied by strategic deployment of loyal clone units. Behind them, in tactical reserve, Guilliman waited with Commander Cody and 200 clone troopers whose loyalty had been tested and confirmed. "Chancellor Palpatine," Mace Windu said as the Jedi entered the office, lightsabers unignited but ready. "In the name of the Galactic Senate, you're under arrest." Palpatine stood from his desk, his expression one of profound sadness. "Master Windu, I hoped it wouldn't come to this." The Jedi attempting to overthrow the Republic's democratically elected leader. The Republic will be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire for a safe and secure society. Guilliman's voice came from the doorway as the Primarch entered, his massive armored form filling the space. He'd memorized fragments of future history from his own galaxy's records of similar transitions. The word struck Palpatine like a physical blow. How could this outsider know? The Chancellor's mask cracked. Just slightly. Just enough. "You know nothing of what I've built," Palpatine said, his voice carrying new edge. "This Republic is weak, corrupt, dying. I've spent decades preparing to transform it into something that can survive the darkness ahead." "By orchestrating its civil war," Mace Windu said, "by manipulating both sides, by planning to murder the Jedi." Palpatine smiled, not the kindly Chancellor smile, but something cold and ancient. "The Jedi are already dead. You just don't know it yet." His hand moved with force-enhanced speed, drawing a lightsaber concealed in his sleeve. Red blade ignited, and Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith, attacked with the fury of decades contained. The fight was brutality and precision. Agen Kolar died in the first 3 seconds, Sidious's blade piercing his chest before the Jedi could fully react. Ceci Tain followed moments later, his defense shattered by Sith speed and power. Kit Fisto lasted longer, his aquatic reflexes keeping him alive for nearly 20 seconds before Sidious's blade found his throat. Then it was only Mace Windu, the Republic's greatest Jedi warrior, facing the Sith Lord alone. Their blades met in showers of sparks. Windu's Va-Pad style, using an opponent's darkness against them, found perfect expression against Sidious's raw power. The Jedi Master pressed forward, driving the Sith Lord back toward the window. Guilliman watched from the doorway, his hand on the Emperor's sword. Every instinct screamed to intervene, but this was the Jedi's fight. Their chance to prove their order could face darkness and prevail. "You are under arrest, my lord," Windu said, his blade at Sidious's throat. "Are you going to kill me?" Sidious asked, his voice suddenly weak, an old man begging for mercy. "I would certainly like to," Windu replied. "Then do it," Sidious shrieked, and lightning exploded from his fingertips. Windu caught it on his lightsaber, the energy crackling as it deflected back towards Sidious. The Sith Lord's face contorted, flesh burning and scarring under his own power reflected. The kindly Chancellor was gone completely now, replaced by something twisted and malevolent. "Commander Cody," Guilliman spoke into his calm bead. "Execute emergency protocol. Lock down the Senate building. No transmissions in or out." Because Guilliman understood what was about to happen, Palpatine was losing. The Sith Lord would trigger his contingency orders rather than face capture. Order 66 would activate unless Guilliman could prevent the signal from reaching the clone army. "Signal jammer activated," Cody confirmed. "No transmissions possible within 500 meters." Sidious felt it, his connection to the clone command network severed. The Primarch had outmaneuvered him as rage and something close to respect flickered across the Sith Lord's ruined face. "You," Sidious hissed, focusing on Guilliman even as Windu's blade pressed closer. "You're the variable I never anticipated. A being outside the Force, immune to prophecy, unpredictable. I'm the consequence of your overreach," Guilliman replied coldly. "You orchestrated a war so complex you couldn't control every element. I'm the piece that doesn't fit your design." Mace Windu's blade moved for the killing stroke, and Sidious released every ounce of Sith power he'd accumulated across decades. Lightning exploded outward in a sphere of destruction. Windu was thrown backward, his lightsaber flying from his hand. The windows shattered, and Darth Sidious rose, his yellow eyes burning with hatred that had endured 1,000 years of Sith planning. "You believe you've won?" Sidious laughed. "The Jedi die today regardless. I've prepared for every contingency, every failure. Order 66 exists in clone conditioning too deep to override. All I need is one transmission, one moment where your jamming falters, and the galaxy burns." Guilliman drew the Emperor's sword, the blade ignited with power that made even Sidious pause. This was no lightsaber, but a weapon forged by a being who'd fought gods and won. "Then we ensure you never get that transmission," Guilliman said, and attacked. The Primarch moved with speed that defied his armored bulk. Sidious barely deflected the first strike, the force of impact driving him backward. This wasn't a Jedi fighting with restraint. This was a warrior from the 41st millennium where war was extinction or survival. Sidious unleashed Force lightning. It washed over Guilliman's armor, absorbed by systems designed to withstand demon sorcery. The Primarch's counterstrike shattered furniture and cracked walls. They fought across the office with Mace Windu struggling to his feet, preparing to join the battle. "Commander Cody," Guilliman commanded between strikes, "signal all loyal clone units. Arrest Chancellor Palpatine on charges of treason. Broadcast evidence on all channels. Make sure every clone in the Republic knows their Chancellor is Sith." It was the final gambit. Expose Sidious publicly and completely. Force the clone army to choose between conditioning and evidence. Some would still follow the Chancellor, but others, enough others, would choose the Republic. Sidious realized his trap had become his K. He force-pushed Guilliman backward with enough power to crack the Primarch's armor, then leaped toward the shattered window. But Mace Windu was there, his recovered lightsaber intercepting the Sith Lord mid-jump. They fell together through broken transparasteel, tumbling into Coruscant's endless vertical cityscape. Guilliman reached the window's edge in time to see Mace Windu and Darth Sidious plummeting through layers of air traffic. Their lightsabers still clashed even as they fell, two warriors locked in final combat. Then an explosion. Sidious had detonated something, maybe a thermal detonator, maybe pure force power. When the smoke cleared, both figures were gone into Coruscant's lower levels. "All units," Guilliman commanded, his voice carrying across every Republic channel. "Supreme Chancellor Palpatine is confirmed as Darth Sidious, Sith Lord and orchestrator of the Clone Wars. The evidence is irrefutable. He is an enemy of the Republic and must be apprehended. This is not a coup. This is defense of the Republic against tyranny." Across Coruscant, across the galaxy, clone troopers received the transmission, saw the evidence, watched recordings of Palpatine wielding a Sith lightsaber. Their conditioning warred with reality, and the clone army fractured. Some followed their chancellor regardless. He was their creator's patron, their advocate, their commander-in-chief. Others chose the Republic they'd been created to defend. Brothers turned weapons on brothers in confusion and anguish. The Jedi scattered across the galaxy received warning from the Temple. Palpatine exposed, contingency orders likely. Trust no transmissions from the Chancellor. Some heeded the warning, others died when loyal to Palpatine clones executed them anyway. It wasn't the complete genocide Order 66 was designed to be, but it was bloody enough. Commander Cody stood beside Guilliman at the shattered window, watching Coruscant descend into chaos. "Sir," the clone said quietly, "half my brothers just chose a Sith Lord over the Republic. What does that make us?" "Soldiers who broke their programming," Guilliman replied. "That makes you free, Commander, for better and worse." The Republic burned, but it didn't die. 3 months after the confrontation in Palpatine's office, Coruscant remained under martial law enforced by clone units whose loyalty had been tested and confirmed. The Senate met in emergency session daily, attempting to rebuild government from the ruins of Palpatine's conspiracy. And in the lowest levels of the Senate building, Mace Windu recovered from injuries that should have killed him, broken bones, severe burns, and trauma that would have ended any normal being. But Jedi Masters were not normal beings. Guilliman visited the medical facility where Windu lay wrapped in Bacta bandages, his presence filling the small room. The Jedi Master's eyes tracked the Primarch with an expression that mixed grudging respect and lingering suspicion. "You were right," Windu said, his voice still weak. "About everything. Palpatine, the conspiracy, the contingency orders. If we'd waited for perfect proof, we'd all be dead." "Being right brings no satisfaction when the cost is measured in thousands of dead Jedi," Guilliman replied. He'd reviewed the casualty reports. 43% of Jedi Knights and Masters killed in the initial chaos when clone units fractured. Entire temple outposts destroyed. Padawans executed by clones who chose Chancellor over Republic. "I predicted the trap. I just couldn't prevent all its consequences." "You prevented total extinction," Windu corrected. "The Order survives. Diminished, traumatized, but alive. That's more than we would have achieved following our own path." He paused. "The Council has voted. When I recover, I'm stepping down as a Council member. Master Yoda is also retiring from active leadership. The Jedi Order needs to rebuild from foundation. We were arrogant, Guilliman. We believed our connection to the Force made us wise. It made us blind." "What will you do?" Guilliman asked. "Return to being what Jedi were meant to be, peacekeepers, teachers, not generals." Windu's expression carried weight of hard-learned wisdom. "The Republic needs military leadership, but it shouldn't come from religious orders. That mistake cost us everything." Guilliman nodded slowly. "The Senate is establishing a formal military command structure. Professional officers, Republic citizens who've trained for warfare specifically. Clone commanders like Cody are being integrated as trainers and advisors rather than frontline cannon fodder." And you? Windu asked. What happens to the Primarch who saved the Republic? I continue my research, Guilliman said. Senator Organa has provided funding for dimensional physics studies. The scientists believe they're close to replicating the rift that brought me here. Another 6 months, perhaps a year. You're leaving, Windu said. It wasn't quite a question. I'm going home, Guilliman corrected. My Imperium needs me. My father's dream is dying under theocratic corruption and institutional decay. I've spent long enough in your galaxy, Master Windu. Time to save my own. They sat in companionable silence, two warriors who'd fought together, disagreed constantly, and ultimately achieved victory through uncomfortable compromise. The Republic will miss you, Windu said finally, though I suspect many senators will be relieved. You make them uncomfortable. Too efficient. Too willing to ignore politics for results. Democracy requires inefficiency, Guilliman replied. It's the price of freedom. Your republic will be stronger for it, assuming the new Senate can resist the temptation toward authoritarian efficiency that Palpatine represented. We'll try, Windu said. And if we fail, at least we'll fail on our own terms rather than a Sith Lord's design. The Separatist surrender came 4 months after Palpatine's exposure. With their hidden master revealed and the war's orchestration exposed, the Confederacy of Independent Systems fractured. Some systems rejoined the Republic. Others negotiated independence treaties. A handful of die-hard Separatist holdouts continued fighting, but they were pirates and warlords rather than existential threats. Count Dooku had disappeared in the chaos. Some intelligence suggested he'd died fighting clone troops during the initial confusion. Other reports placed him in the unknown regions, gathering Sith artifacts and planning revenge. Guilliman had assigned clone intelligence units to hunt him, but the former Jedi had proven elusive. Let him go, Obi-Wan advised during one strategic meeting. Dooku is dangerous, but he's not the threat Sidious was. The Sith are broken. Their grand plan failed. Pursuing revenge will only perpetuate the cycle. Guilliman had accepted that wisdom reluctantly. He was a warrior who preferred enemies eliminated completely. But this wasn't his galaxy. These weren't his wars to fight indefinitely. The dimensional rift generator took shape in a secure research facility on Coruscant's industrial moon. Guilliman watched scientists calibrate exotic matter containment fields and hypermatter reactors with the precision he'd once applied to fortress construction. The device was massive, 30 meters tall, wrapped in energy shielding that made reality shimmer around it. The calculations are complete, Dr. Sandhill reported, his moon features showing exhaustion and exhilaration. We can open a rift to the coordinates where you first appeared. Whether it leads to your exact dimensional origin is uncertain, but the quantum signatures match within acceptable parameters. When? Guilliman asked. 48 hours. We need to charge the hypermatter cores and ensure no interference from Coruscant's planetary shields. The energy release will be visible from orbit. Sandhill paused. Lord Commander Bam, you should know the Republic Senate has requested you stay, offered you permanent military command, citizenship, political authority. They're grateful for what you've done. I know, Guilliman said. Senator Organa made the offer personally. I declined. Because you have your own galaxy to save? Because this galaxy needs to save itself, Guilliman replied. If I stay, I become another authority figure they depend on. Another emergency power that becomes permanent. Better to leave them struggling toward democracy than comfortable under benevolent dictatorship. The farewell gathering assembled in the Jedi Temple's main hall, what remained of the Order, along with Republic senators and clone commanders who'd fought alongside the Primarch. Yoda approached, leaning heavily on his Geimer stick. his ancient eyes reflecting wisdom earned through catastrophe. "Learn from you, we did," Yoda said simply. "Painful lessons, necessary lessons. Changed the Jedi Order, you have. Changed the Republic. Whether change endures," he shrugged, "time will tell." "The Republic has the tools to succeed," Guilliman replied. "Whether it uses them is your choice, not mine." He looked at the assembled gathering. "You survived a conspiracy designed to destroy everything you valued. Remember that survival came through cooperation between Jedi, Senate, and military. None of you could have stopped Palpatine alone. Together, you were stronger than his decades of planning." Commander Cody stepped forward, his armor bearing new insignia: Republic Military Academy, Training Command. "Sir, the Clone Army wanted you to know we've chosen names, all of us. We're not just numbers anymore. You taught us that soldiers can be more than their programming." Guilliman placed a hand on the clone commander's shoulder. "You were always more than programming, Cody. You just needed someone to acknowledge it." Bail Organa approached last, carrying a datapad. "The Senate voted to grant you honorary citizenship and military honors. You'll always have a place in the Republic, Lord Commander, if you ever need to return." "I won't," Guilliman said gently. "My path leads elsewhere, but thank you, Senator, for your trust, for your friendship, for proving that politicians can prioritize civilization over personal power." The dimensional rift generator activated with power that made Coruscant's orbital sensors scream warnings. Space itself tore open, a wound in reality that bled colors the Star Wars galaxy had never seen. Warp energy, contained and directed, creating a bridge between dimensions. Guilliman stood at the threshold in full armor, the Emperor's sword at his side, the hand of Dominion ready. Behind him, the Republic he'd saved watched with mixture of gratitude and relief. Ahead, the swirling chaos of the rift offered passage home. "For the Republic, Obi-Wan," Obi-Wan said, echoing the phrase Guilliman had taught the clone army. "For the Imperium," Guilliman replied, "and for civilizations everywhere that fight against darkness." He stepped into the rift. Energy engulfed him. Reality twisted and folded, and Roboute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, vanished from the Star Wars galaxy as suddenly as he'd arrived. The rift collapsed. Sensors confirmed dimensional stability. The Primarch was gone. In the temple hall, Yoda spoke softly. "Changed were we by his presence, changed forever. Whether for better or worse, centuries will judge." "Better," Mace Windu said with rare certainty. "He showed us that faith without wisdom is blindness, that power without accountability is tyranny. We'll remember. We have to." Across the galaxy, clone troopers who'd chosen Republic over Chancellor continued their transformation from programmed soldiers to thinking beings. Senators who'd grown comfortable with emergency powers learned to govern through consensus again. Jedi who'd believed themselves untouchable warriors rebuilt their order around humility and service. The Republic endured, imperfect, struggling, but free. And in the 41st millennium, in a galaxy far more terrible than anything the Star Wars universe had imagined, Roboute Guilliman emerged from the warp screaming with fury and purpose. His Imperium awaited. His father's dying dream called for salvation. He'd learned from the Republic's near death, seen how institutions rotted from within, understood the price of arrogance and the value of cooperation. The Imperium would be saved, not through the blind faith that had corrupted it, but through the strategic wisdom of a Primarch who'd witnessed democracy defend itself against tyranny. And the galaxy would learn that Roboute Guilliman had returned with lessons purchased in another universe's blood. The Battle of Coruscant would be remembered as the day the Republic looked into the abyss and stepped back. History recorded Supreme Chancellor Palpatine's betrayal. the Jedi Order's near destruction, and the clone army's fracture along lines of conscience versus programming. But the histories also recorded something else. The Primarch from beyond the stars who appeared when the Republic needed him most and vanished when his purpose was complete. Guilliman had spent 18 months in the Star Wars galaxy. In that time, he'd transformed military doctrine, exposed galactic conspiracy, and prevented the transformation of a republic into an empire. He'd saved millions of lives and broken a Sith Lord's decades-long plan. But his greatest achievement was simpler. He'd shown the Republic it could save itself. That democracy, for all its inefficiency and frustration, possessed strength tyranny could never match. The strength of citizens who chose freedom over security, cooperation over dominance, and wisdom over certainty. The Jedi Order rebuilt itself as peacekeepers rather than generals. The Senate reformed with constitutional safeguards against emergency powers. The clone army integrated into Republic society as citizens rather than property. And Count Dooku, wherever he'd fled, never returned to threaten the galaxy again. Sometimes, late in Coruscant nights, Obi-Wan Kenobi would stand at the temple windows and remember the armored giant who'd forced the Jedi to question everything they believed. The Primarch who fought without the Force but understood strategy better than any Jedi master. The warrior who'd been shaped by a galaxy's darkness, yet still believed civilization was worth saving. "May the Force be with you, Roboute Guilliman," Obi-Wan whispered to the stars. "Wherever your war takes you." And across the dimensional gulf, in a galaxy that knew only war, a Primarch fought to save his father's dream with new understanding of what made civilizations endure. Not faith, not power, but the eternal struggle towards something better than survival. The Republic had taught him that lesson, and the Imperium would learn it whether it wished to or not.